Okay. Chairman Danielle Spicer.
Here.
Vice Chairman Mike Ward. Mike, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yep, present.
Great, thank you. Eric Nyland.
Here.
Peter Driscoll.
Present.
Mark Sprague.
Here.
And James Barr.
Here.
All right, we have a full board.
Okay, so we'll start with parcel 4D-101 Meadow Road, lots 4 and proposed lots 2, 3, 5, and 6. Hilary Rogers, basically, and Thomas Hamill. The buyer of lot 4 on Meadow Road seeks to request a single driveway for lot 4 in lieu of a common driveway between lots 4, 5, and 6. Proposed lots 5 and 6 are identified as parcel B.
I'm Jack from Dillis and Roy. I don't know what happened to my screen here, but everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I was in front of the board a few weeks ago with lot number 4 for an ANR plan, and at the end of the meeting, everybody had suggested that I go back and talk to the clients about doing a common driveway versus a single driveway. I have, and there have been some concerns with the buyer on changing everything to a common driveway at the 11th hour versus what we had originally designed and what our office had gone off of on sketches that were done back a number of years ago when this project was taking fruition. Last week I had gone out there to do some site distance work. I believe Erica had a copy sent to her of the trees that were in the projected way, so to speak. Basically the trees that we're talking about right now are the trees for the driveway site distance for lots 5 and 6. Lot number 4, basically there's just 2 trees that would be in the way. There's one 24-inch maple that is right near the proposed entranceway, which is actually leaning across the road right now, which is probably suggested to come down or will have to come down anyway. And then further north on Meadow Road, there is a 12-inch pine that is not doing too well, being so close to the road. So I guess the reason why we're here tonight is for the clients, our clients and their attorneys and architects and whatnot to talk about the, I'm not going to say necessity, but the design of our driveway for lot number 4 being a single driveway, if that could possibly stay, and with the proposition that lots 5 and 6 and 2 and 3 have the shared driveways when they come in the future to the planning board.
Thank you very much for that introduction. My name is Julie Palmacio, and I represent the potential buyer, Rashid Dahani, who is also on the call. Just a couple things from our end as to why we are seeking to have sort of our own driveway on lot 4. The potential buyer has spent a significant amount of time and money already on plans and engineering based on a single driveway. So it would be, a significant cost expense at this time and time expense to go back and sort of revise the plans for either common or shared driveway. He is applying for a construction loan in order to build this house, and that loan requires plans and approvals, and we're pretty far down the line with what we have right now. If we had to go back and revise those plans and work on some new approvals, it'd be a pretty significant delay in the mortgage approval process, which would delay sort of our purchase of lot 4 more significantly than what we were anticipating. Mr. Dahani's architect, who is also on the call with us, has spent a lot of time sort of in the design concept of the proposed house, in terms of site topography, distance from the road and elevation, and a sort of a common or shared driveway is not really consistent with that concept they already have in place. And also Mr. Tahani specifically chose lot 4 because it was proposed to have its own driveway, and sort of turned away other lots that had a common driveway, because it's not what he was looking for specifically. So it sort of changes the entire idea that he had for this house. And I'd like to invite Mr. Tahani and his architect just to speak a little more specifically about the time and the costs and some of the plans and changes that would have to happen if we would go this route.
Thank you, Julie. I do have the architect, Mr. Robert Therian, on the phone. And like Julie rightly said, I have spent a significant amount of money and time to work on the plans, as well as the layout of the home. And I've gone a long way with the bank. I'm actually at the very close to the end of closing my construction loan, and everything was based on the original idea that we could have a single driveway for that property. So anything other than that will bring me back to the very beginning of the line with the bank, and it will also cost me a significant amount of money with respect to modifying the plans for the house. And Robert is here to talk about some of the technical details that he took into account in designing the home. And he can also speak to how much more time we would have to spend if anything would have to change. So, Robert.
Good evening. Thank you. I don't know what graphics you have in front of you, but I can tell you I've been working with my client for over 7 months. I was very involved with the lot selection. We looked at several lots and ultimately came up with this lot that we're talking about now, lot 4. At the time, there were preliminary site plans on the subdivision of the lots here. That was available through the realtor and through the owner, the seller. And the engineering on the site work was done on assumed housing. So if you look, the initial plans, every house was the same size and shape. And so that was what the owner provided. So we took their site plan. We designed a house. Now, this is not a spec home. This is a custom, close to deluxe category home that reflects the landmass, the views, where the sun rises and sets, and my conceptual plan was originally to design it to fit into the lot, not on the lot. And the approach, the driveway approach was different than what the sellers had thought or assumed would be. So the conceptual site plan was very much a part of the building design and concept. It was designed to have a building that was, way off the road, that would have privacy, that would have a dramatic approach to a dramatic entrance. It was also tailored and conceived using the existing topography, so that throughout the project, there are different grade elevations and different foundation height, wall heights and locations. None of that material has been forwarded to the current surveyor on the property. His information was used so that we could plan ours. So the problem here, as you can see, the objectives of the owner in buying the property and in my developing the design concept was very tailored. It was tailored for lifestyle and tailored for privacy and tailored for, I forgot the other term, but for the lot itself. with the contours that are there. And so the architectural plan itself has very intimate spaces, has social spaces, and has work areas for the hobbies of the family involved. So we spent almost 7 months to get not only a conceptual plan, to actually prepare the construction documents and the remaining work required to complete what we set out to do has been suspended right now, awaiting whether the owner is going to purchase this property or not. And so the permit drawings about 80% done. We have some HVAC work to do, a little engineering to do. We got site topography to work on, and then landscape plans. So, the objectives were to have something to present to his financial institution to assure funding for the project. And so all of this had to be prepared so that he can get his loan approval. And then from there, based on all those parameters, the loan approval, I'm agreeing to buy the property. Then we would have modified and got back to the surveyor to make the adjustments we wanted to apply to our building concept and design. So it is a traumatic problem right now because a lot of money has been invested, and to the suggested things that have come back from the seller's site engineer are based upon site conditions and engineering type subject matter, and not on the architectural design, which we fully intended to go back and have him modify his current work to work for ours. So the recent knowledge of sharing driveways and everything, and locations of driveways and alternate driveways are not what we had envisioned in the design process on this project. So the question right now is, we would like to stick to alter. I mean, the last site, I don't know what site document you have available in front of you to look at. Okay, so there was the original one when the owner was setting up the subdivision. And then there was another one that I had prepared conceptually. And now there is a third one suggesting a common driveway for all 3 lots. So none of those were what we intended to do. And now what we would like to consider with all the circumstances that are here is to, I mean, everybody's not sure whether, my client's going to buy the property from the seller. The financing is on hold, depending on approvals for a buildable lot to the owner's satisfaction. The owner really loves the design we have. To take it,
So,
modify.
Can I just
Yes.
stop you for a second? Are you able to see the screen with the plan that we're showing?
I see a screen that has 3 separate driveways.
Yes. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure you're able to see this plan. So is this the plan that you are referring to as the preferred plan?
No,
This is not the plan because
No.
this one does not have the shared driveway.
right. There was an initial plan with independent driveways. And then so
This is the plan that we have submitted or will be submitting. Lot 4 in the middle has a separate driveway, and 5 and 6 to the north are that shared driveway as you're
I
looking at.
understand. That was a suggestion made by the owner's surveyor to remedy the problem based upon what I thought might work. They presented this site plan to me and to my client to see if they'd be happy with it. The problem with this site plan that you see before you is the driveway was not intended to be on that site, that side of the lot. It was meant to be, if you're viewing it, if you're viewing the house from the front, it was meant to come up along the left side. And the garages, the entry to the house are all oriented for that approach to the property. So the building that you see here is not the building profile that of the owners of my client's design. So we fully intended, assuming we'd have a right to our own driveway, that we would go back to the engineer and modify the original site plan accordingly, and before this planning board issue came up. So the drawings that you see in front of you right now are suggestive of how to remedy the problem to get one driveway. But I don't want the owner to be burdened with that driveway approach because it's not compatible with the building design that we have. So I don't, I would like to have lot 4 personally independent of the other 2 lots with its own driveway, and then we can work with the surveyor we have now or another surveyor or whatever to have the driveway relate well to the building. And because I think some of the issues here is the communications have been between the seller, the broker, and the surveyor. I don't think the surveyor has actually seen the conceptual site plan that we proposed. We fully anticipated to do that when we went for the building to get the building permit. So that would require topography modifications. It's going to require relocating the septic system. The capacity engineering of it's okay, but the location is not. And the driveway approach would be different. So
Robert, sorry, just to quickly interrupt you. So my name is Hilary Rogers. I am the real estate agent representing Rashid. He's the buyer. If I understand correctly, we're in this meeting to decide whether we can have our individual driveway or the shared driveway that they have suggested. And so what we're arguing now is not necessarily which direction the driveway comes upon the house, but if we could have a shared driveway. So these are the plans that the engineering firm has submitted. And so these are the plans that we have to stick with for right now. Whether we want to decide the driveway, that's a decision for another day.
Yeah. Okay. That was my only concern. I didn't want to get locked into this.
Yes. But I think that this, at this point, this is the driveway that we're proposing. And this is a driveway that we hope you guys would approve. Because like they said, just to kind of recap, and then we can let you guys speak, because I know we've been talking for a little while, is that Rashid's really far into this process. He's designed this, he chose this lot specifically because of the individual driveway. And we were just hoping that you guys will reconsider your decision and let him have the plan that he decided upon with the individual driveway, with what the engineer and the surveyor have brought forth.
Can I have a clarification on that?
Sure.
I agree. It would be to everybody's advantage to have a separate driveway.
Yes.
I don't want any misunderstanding about the profile of that driveway and where it is.
Yeah, so right now the driveway is the one we're talking about is the one that's right in front of us on the screen.
Right, it's a suggested driveway, is that correct?
The driveway we're talking about is the one that's on the plan. That's the one we're making a decision upon.
So Erica, if I can just take a step back here for a second, I appreciate everyone's comments and summary of where kind of the process has brought us to here. As Hilary, as you mentioned, I think, tonight we're here just to discuss whether this could be its own individual driveway versus the shared driveway with lots 5 and 6. Erica, with regard to the design of the driveway, when does that, is that reviewed or what's the process with regard to that? Because that,
Yeah, so as far as the design of the driveway goes, that would be at the time that they make their submittal for a driveway permit. So when they submit their driveway application, they'll have to submit a site plan. And at that point, we would take a look at the design. I think just to add to the discussion for this evening, though, I think planning board should be cognizant of where the curb cut is, because I think that plays into whether or not you want a single driveway or a common driveway. And that is partly the reason why Dillis and Roy had gone out there to stake the locations and also to identify if any trees needed to come down through a scenic road hearing process. So that does play into, I believe, the board's decision tonight.
Yeah. So I think that's where I wanted to. So basically summarize is where we can kind of see this plan is showing 3 curb cuts, one kind of at the bottom of the plan. And then this one, which is in the middle, which is for the one that we're talking about for lot 4, and then the one all the way up there. So I think with regard to any approval tonight, we are looking for those curb cuts to remain. So while a driveway permit may be forthcoming where the exact location of the driveway throughout the lot may change, obviously we need engineering plans just to show that it meets the required bylaws, but the actual curb cut we would want to remain in that location. Is that, I guess, are there concerns with regard to where, before I kind of get to opening up to the board, just an individual curb cut, I just want to see if there are concerns with that location from the client's perspective.
Rashid can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe at that location of the curb cut will work. It will work no matter what side the driveway comes upon the house.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Speaking on behalf of my client, the curb cut for lot 4 is acceptable to work with.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I'd like to open up to the board. I know just for everyone that's present here, I know when we were approached with this plan, our desire is always to try to minimize curb cuts along the road, just, for traffic safety and other reasons, and site distances and stuff. I do appreciate all of the information you all have provided tonight. I think it's very beneficial to understand the thought process that has kind of gone into, all of everything that we don't see and, we don't necessarily hear. So I appreciate you all sharing that with us. I guess I'd like to ask the board, we had talked about asking last time to join that with lots 4 and 5, but now hearing all of the constraints and the desire of the owner of that, are we amenable to separating that and allowing its own individual curb cut?
So I guess either to the seller or to the engineers, was there ever any, the first time the board saw this plan, we said we wanted them combined. Has there ever been any indication from previous planning board that indicated that the individual curb cuts would have been acceptable?
That I don't know. I had
so
basically I basically got thrown into this job late spring, early summer. So I am unfamiliar with what has transpired between our office and the sellers over the last few years when this came to our office. So I have to apologize on our company's behalf because there was really nothing in our files. I was kind of leaning on Erica a little bit at the beginning of this to find out what she had in her memory bank about what had transpired. If the previous engineer had, gone over anything with her. So basically I went into our files, looked at what we had for sketches and said, oh, this, we've got a proposed, again, it was a rough sketch of a shared driveway for 2 and 3, a single lot for 4, a single driveway for lot 4, and then a shared driveway for 4 and 5. And I just pretty much ran with it, figuring that that's what was set forth for us, previously.
Mark, I can speak to that a little bit. So the Wilson Farm that's at 96 Long Hill Road, which this overall parcel was part of.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I apologize. I thought I was muted for a second. I'm sorry about that. And so the property was subdivided back in 2016. So the plans that were submitted and reviewed by the board at the last meeting was the first time that we've had a chance to look at the curb cuts for these particular lots or proposed lots.
So there was a lot of assumptions on the sellers and buyers part about what curb cuts would or wouldn't be allowed. And now we're hearing complaints that their assumptions aren't what the board is aiming for.
Mr. Sprague, my name's Thomas Hamill. I represent the sellers. My clients don't have a lot of connection other than family to this farm. When we started the process back in 16, we were new to the Bolton Planning Board bylaws, and there was no expectation when we subdivided the house as part of the farm and the lot on Longview Road? Long Hill, thank you very much. Okay, there was never any dialogue at that moment in time because it wasn't conceptually laid out for a shared driveway. One driveway was already there from the farmhouse, and then we created a lot next to it. It wasn't until we got into and we understood when we did that there would be a period of time that we would have to assimilate these lots into the marketplace before we could divide up the balance of it. And we still understand that we're waiting on until March of this year to do the remaining lots. And it was really only in this dialogue and this round that we started getting into the conversations about shared driveways, common driveways. My clients, to the best of my knowledge, unless the brokers know something different, really didn't get into a lot of dialogue about it. And they're not builders. And the reason why I initiated, from my perspective, the buyers have initiated also from their own thought process, is they're not sophisticated enough to really build common driveways. So we thought if we could do it by shared driveways, we could, instead of having 2 curb cuts, we are asking for 3. I appreciate that and understand that, but we thought it was a good accommodation or compromise to what we had heard from the board back in December. But we haven't known about any of this for very long, but once we understood what was having to transpire, we've tried to work with it to find a reasonable accommodation. That's the best I can tell you.
So Danielle,
Did you have any other? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, it's a little confusing to follow everything, but I'm just trying to make sure I'm on the same page here. So my recollection from when we reviewed this plan and approved the division of the lot, this is what we looked at, right? And we were looking at this drawing, and we kind of looked at the shared driveway there to the north or whatever direction that is, and the one for lot 4, and we said, well, they're pretty darn close along that lot line. It makes sense to just somehow connect them into one. Am I remembering correctly what we were
That's
discussing
correct.
there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep,
And
so it was
so-
exactly this plan that we looked at, yes.
Okay, and I understand that so what we're hearing now is that although this is the plan, we kind of looked at, and I understand what we were doing was not approving the driveway or anything, but more of the subdivision or the division of the lot. But now what we're hearing is, although that they want to keep the curb cuts in the same place, that driveway for lot 4, it would be to the other side or a different way. Is that also correct?
Yes, I think, yeah, so we're looking tonight just at the curb cuts. How they actually design the driveway may be different than what's shown on this plan, and they will, when they pull the driveway permit, they'll actually need to submit, engineered plans to show the final layout of that driveway at that point.
Okay, yeah, all right, I think I get it now.
Did anyone else, Mark or Eric, Mike, did you guys have any questions or comments on this?
I mean, the original plot that we looked at from the December 9th meeting had 3 curb cuts, and
Yes.
the document I'm looking at, lot 6 had its own individual, and 4 and 5 were combined. Is that right? That's the document I was referring to.
Now, this has always been this was the one that was presented back in December.
Okay, maybe just the materials that Erica sent had a older plot. Okay.
Yeah, this is Eric. I don't have, I think, an issue with the single driveway for lot 4. I just don't, like how, the planning board gets put into positions where engineering gets done, houses get sold before. I mean, we shouldn't be put in the position where, well, we did this work, so now you have to approve it. I mean, the approvals are the approvals. And, that's not really our fault if you went ahead of the approvals. But in general, I'm not against just allowing the lot 4 to have its own driveway.
We don't have to approve it, Eric, if we don't want to. I mean, you're right. We do get put into this position a lot of times, and I think somewhere along the line here, we need to kind of I mean, if you're if we make a decision, if it doesn't I mean, we hit this with people coming in and complaining or wanting various permits because the real oh, we're desperate because we have a mortgage and we need to move in, and the builder is running late, so we need things approved or whatever the case may be. So I mean, the fact that they did a lot of work based off assumptions that hadn't been approved yet, really shouldn't impact what our decision is here. I mean, if we would prefer there to be only 2 curb cuts along there, if it works better for lot 4 to be shared with 2 and 3, then we should entertain that. But I think we need to. We've run into so many places where we've been kind of backed into corners on things like this, because things come in piecemeal and we're not allowed to actually do planning. We're kind of just permitting. So if our desire for the plan here is to have 2 curb cuts, and that's what we need to stick with. And if the architect wants to, says, well, it'd be better to go in with lots 2 and 3, down at the curb, down near the curb cut, then we could entertain that. But and that's my take on it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we last time, if I recall, that's kind of what we said, right, Mark? We looked at the 3 which are on this screen, and we thought, oh, it might make sense to combine 4, 5, and 6 into 1, and that's what we recommended, right? We basically recommended they be combined.
Yeah, well,
reduce the total number of curb cuts from 3 to 2. And it, I think it was more like that's what we recommended, and exactly how that they would be oriented, that would come later down the road. Yeah, I think that, I mean, that makes sense to me, given the, what we're looking at here, the exact layout. I mean, I don't think that necessarily matters, but it doesn't really seem like you need 3 in that amount of space with this lot configuration. So it's kind of my opinion.
Erica, can I ask you a question? So you said that in 2016, what did we approve in 2016? We approved lots 4, 5, and 6.
No. So back in 2006, they came before the board for an ANR plan to subdivide the original farm. So that was 96 Long Hill Road. So the board subdivided essentially one lot. Well, it was 2 lots and 1 parcel essentially back in 2016. So there's the farmhouse, which has a lot. Then there was a lot to the side of that on Long Hill Road that was sold. And then there was this remaining large parcel that they're now looking to further subdivide. The last ANR plan that came before the board in December was to subdivide out lot 4. So lots 2, 3, 5, and 6 are still concept.
Do you have a plan that kind of shows lot 3 further down there? I was just curious to kind of see a little bit more of that. Or is this just the entirety of the plan?
That is what was most recently submitted to the board, but I can go back to a concept plan that I have on file.
That's okay. I just didn't know if it was really, I just kind of wanted to see more of the lot 4 that's adjacent to lot 3. But I guess bottom line is we need to feel comfortable. I mean, I understand the architect's point of view that, the house is shifting some, where the driveway would want to come in is not necessarily as it's shown on this plan, and the architectural components that would want to take into consideration with regard to that layout. It is a little tough when we get these and it's late in the game and there's other is outside of the planning board's decision that are impacted on this. But at this point, I guess I'm kind of on the fence with allowing. The fact that Eric, I think you said you went out there, you looked at the 3 different areas. The site distance wise seemed to be sufficient or okay. And there weren't, I guess that's my main concern is, site distance wise, trees, visibility, kind of coming in here, making sure that that's reasonable. So with that and understanding that it seems like that is reasonable, in this instance, I may be okay with allowing it, but I understand also what Mark and Pete, what you were talking about with regard to, just trying to still limit it. I know that's our preference as well.
Danielle, would it be helpful to the board if I showed those photos quickly?
Yes, why don't we just show those real quickly?
Can you see them on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the stake that is shown, I believe, in the center line of the driveway for lot 4. And so as I'm standing there at that stake location, I've taken a photo looking down Meadow Road away from Long Hill Road intersection. So I'm looking down Meadow Road, and here is the closest driveway to that proposed location. This is 95 Meadow Road to this house. And then across, if you look further down, you can see my white car, and that would be the entrance, the driveway entrance to lots 5 and 6, if they did a shared driveway at that location. And then looking the other way at that same location at lot 4, this is looking towards the intersection with Long Hill Road. They don't know exactly where the curb cut would be for lot 3 because it hasn't been designed yet. But if it's roughly as shown in that particular plan, it would be somewhere in this area here.
What's that distance?
I didn't,
Yeah.
that may be something that Jack could tell you. I didn't take actual measurements. These are just photos.
It's about 175, 180 feet from the proposed centerline stake that was just shown in the previous picture.
Okay.
Then here I'm standing at the stake for lot 5 and 6 driveway entrance. Here's my car. And then again, I'm looking down Meadow Road, and further down along the curve of the road, there's a driveway on this side, and then there is a driveway on the other side. I couldn't tell whether this was a shared driveway or a common driveway, but it does serve more than one house. And then looking the other way towards Long Hill, you can sort of get the perspective. This is 95 Meadow Road again with this house. And then just beyond that, in this approximate location is the lot 4 state driveway. And then just a little bit more standing at the lot 3 sign, knowing that we don't know exactly where that curb cut would be. This is looking down Meadow Road. So this is roughly lot 4. And then this is, where my car is with lot 5 and 6. And then looking back down towards Long Hill Road intersection, the closest house would be here. There's a driveway for 120 Meadow Road. That is it.
All right. Thank you.
So Erica, this approval then is for lot 4 or lot 4, 5, and 6?
It's just a decision of the board whether or not to allow lot 4 to be a single driveway versus a common driveway with 5 and 6.
But are we approving the plans for 5 and 6 as well?
No. That would require a common driveway special permit application. So they would need to come back before the board, and it would be a public hearing process.
But what I'm saying is, if we approve lot 4, how do we assure ourselves that 5 and 6 will be shared?
Well, there are a couple of things. They still need to come before the board for the ANR plan for lots 5 and 6. So that would need to be done. And then when they came before us for driveway permits, we'd also have an opportunity then, to weigh in and deliberate.
Yeah, it's just the way it's being done. Piecemeal, it keeps on.
Yeah.
Kind of like, shh. Yeah. It makes it tough on us. Again, I think in general, I'm okay with the single driveway for lots 4, but the way it's being presented to us doesn't allow us.
Doesn't give us a full planning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just we have bid is being fed to us at the moment. And looking at it looked like where the proposed entrance for lot 3 has a bit of a grade behind it. So I think the next, or the 2 pictures down, I think when you look at it, yeah, the next.
Well, I think all of them have the grades behind them.
But you look at where that is, it looks like a bit more of a grade there than, so it may be that lot 2 and 3 should be coming off of lot 4's curb cut, if the driveway is going to be on the lot 3 side instead of the lot 5 side. I mean, I don't feel like we've got the information here that we have a desire by one of the lots in the middle to do something, but we don't have, all the information to really be able to address the actual subdivision here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pete. But to speak on the other side of things, so they're dividing out this lot floor, it's, meets dimensional requirements, it meets frontage, how do we work the situation within the process, Erica? If they only want to release one lot at a time, I guess they're allowed to do so. I mean, because it meets, the restrictions and stuff, and they don't need a subdivision because they have the frontage for the lots. So I guess where do we stand on that,
Sure. So I can pull up the driveway rules and regulations if you'd like, but there's a section in that, in the rules and regulations that state that it's the board's prerogative that if there is a parcel of land that's in common ownership and they're seeking multiple driveways, the board has the authority to combine driveways as they see fit, including common driveways. So that's where this falls.
Okay,
and,
great.
and Erica, what we did in December, and I was just going back and reading the meeting minutes there, it looks like we approved the division of lot 4, and then we also voted to recommend that the driveway for lot 4 be combined. That's what we did?
That is correct. That is what you did. Yeah, you
So
took 2 votes that evening.
What we're being asked to tonight is basically to reverse that second vote. Is that what the ask is after all this?
Essentially, I would say yes.
Okay.
You guys mind if I just cut in for 1 second? Again, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So I understand this is difficult. I was on Conservation Commission. I'm from Haverhill, Massachusetts. That's where Rashid currently resides. And it's quite irritating when people just expect things of you and you have a purpose and a plan in front of you that you feel the obligation to respect. I get it. I'm just asking that you let Rashid do this. I mean, he's so excited to move to your town. He loves this lot. We looked at many lots over the summer, like in the sweltering heat, climbing hills. And this one really fit him the best. And one of the reasons was the common driveway. Whether that was an assumption on people's part, I get that. I understand that. And that's not your responsibility. But please, I would just ask that you let this be a single driveway. He would really appreciate that. And that's all. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman,
Yes.
Tom Hamill, on behalf of the
Yes.
sellers. We understand the board's prerogative and we understand the board's thought process with respect to this ANR set of plans. My clients are not asking for another individual driveway as part of what they're trying to accomplish. They understand that moving forward after March in subdividing the other 4 lots, 5 and 6 and 2 and 3, that we will be doing that with the assumption that they will both be worked off of shared lots. Excuse me, shared driveways.
The driveways, yes.
Right, and we don't have any buyers for those 4 lots as I speak to you, so that they're not under any belief, reasonable or not, that their house lot would only have their single driveway to it. So, you know, we are going to move forward marketing the balance of these lots, knowing our buyers are going to be told they're going to be shared driveways. Okay, so I don't expect to come back to you asking for this give again. And it's only because this lot had already been committed to this buyer that I said, can we come back and have this conversation?
No, I appreciate that. And thank you for the information. I think,
Sure.
you know, at this point, we've heard it all, you know, similar to what Eric was saying. I guess, you know, originally it would have been nice if in the beginning this was maybe considered to be a shared driveway. I think there was some potential there, but given a lot of the assessment that's kind of been done for the lot and the fact that this has kind of been parceled out on its own, given the site distances that have been shown, you know, the pictures that have been shown, some of the other constraints that, you know, that have been brought up, you know, I'm okay with this third driveway for this one, but just would in the future again trying to keep them as reducing the curb cuts as much as possible is
Absolutely.
definitely our preference.
And and my clients understand that and absolutely will honor that position.
Sure. So I guess we're way over time on this, so I'd like to the board to see what the board would like to do.
Okay, can I ask a question? Can we put in this approval a condition that lots 5 and 6 and 2 and 3 are shared driveways?
Of course.
We would accept that.
Yeah.
On behalf of the owners.
All
Yeah, I
right,
mean-
well, go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, Danielle, from my perspective, I'm not comfortable going back on the decision, we made in December, unless, what came to us was, a more clear plan or conceptual plan of, what would be going for in the future, right? Because that's what we had. And we said, look, we want to limit it from 3 to 2, basically. So we made the recommendation that 4 be combined, and we don't really have anything. I understand there's unique circumstances that we didn't know about at the time for this particular lot, but I don't really think, from my perspective, I don't have enough information to change that decision.
Danielle, can I make a motion?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the driveway for lot 4 being a single driveway on condition that lots 2 and 3 and 5 and 6 are shared driveways in the future.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Erica, can you do a roll call? And we'll first say all those in favor.
Yes, roll call of the board, all in favor. Chairman Danielle Spicer,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Mike Gore,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Peter Driscoll,
No.
and Mark Sprague.
No.
All right, so that passes not unanimously, but 3 in favor and 2 no.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
So,
very
can-
much.
May I ask,
much.
for confirmation, nothing more. It was approved on a 3 to 2 vote. It did not need a 4 to 1 vote.
It did
And
not, no.
And it comes with a further condition that 2 and 3 and 5 and 6 are on shared driveways.
Yes.
That was part of the approval right now. Okay, I just wanted to be clear so that I can tell my clients. Thank you very much, board. I appreciate your help.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We're getting a lot of split votes these days. It's unusual.
Well, I don't know if my vote counts. It probably doesn't whatsoever, but I just want to voice my opinion a little bit, and I'm on Pete and Mark's side as well. It just seems like it's a little confusing, and I'd like a little bit more clarification in the future.
Well, I mean, I know we need to move on, but I hate, like I said earlier, how we get dangled a lot, and I'd like to figure out how that gets
Especially at the
prevented.
9th hour. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something that I will, I'll try to do better at when we have these ANRs come before the board. If there are these remaining large parcels like this, I will begin to have that conversation much sooner with the applicant so that they're fully aware of our zoning bylaws. I mean, and to some degree, there's a due diligence that they should be doing, but I'm happy, I should be doing that, and I will do that moving forward.
That would be great. I think that would be helpful to let them aware, because the sooner we can
The
review
engineer
it.
should have done that up front. Yeah, I mean, there are way too many assumptions made on the slot by people before we even knew that there was a subdivision in the works.
Yeah.
So they had already signed off on and design, spent a lot of money on design before we even had a chance to chime in on it. So I mean, I'm not sure there's anything you could have done, Erica. We would have been in the state in December instead of now, but yeah, okay.
All right, well, let's move on. The next one is Century Mill Estates. Andy, to provide an update regarding the outstanding items to be completed as part of the road acceptance process. Andy,
So
are you?
Danielle?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I apologize for interrupting. Since there are quite a few residents on this Zoom call tonight for this particular subject, I thought it would be helpful if we just quickly went through Zoom participation guidelines. Would that be okay?
That would be great.
Okay. So again, these are the planning board's remote participation guidelines for residents that are not familiar with the open meeting process. So I will just go through these bulleted items. So these are the protocols for remote public meetings. All participants entering the meeting via a computer should rename themselves with their official first and last name. Computer participants are encouraged to click on the participants feature in Zoom to view all participants and to use the chat and raise hand features. The chairman will identify himself or herself. The chairman will conduct a roll call of the board. The chairman will call the meeting to order. All participants, excluding board members, will be muted throughout the meeting unless called upon by the chair. All participants are required to state their name and address when called upon by the chairman. Participants called upon more than once should restate their name. All documents displayed through the meeting will be controlled by the town planner. If and when the chairman allows for public comment questions, it will be conducted in the following order. The chairman will read public comments questions received in advance of the meeting. The chairman will read real-time comments questions typed by computer participants in the chat feature. Computer participants must click on the chat to enter their comment question. The two settings should be set to everyone so that everyone can read the comment. The chairman will call on participants one by one with the raise hand feature. Computer participants can click on raise hand to be called on. Participants accessing the meeting by telephone can type *9 to raise their hand. The chairman will ask if any other participants accessing the meeting have comments, questions. Participants accessing the meeting by telephone can type *6 to mute and unmute their call. And then just last but not least, any votes of the board will be taken by roll call, including the adjournment of the meeting. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Erica. Andy, do you want to go ahead and give us an update?
Okay, I unmuted myself. I'm going to apologize. Andy Benditson, 39 Mill Pond Road. I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm not an expert at this Zoom tech meeting. Okay. I believe, Erica, is that you displaying?
That is correct. So this is the punch list, the most recent punch list from December.
Correct.
I thought we could walk through this.
Okay. I'll start off just by saying, in general, the remaining physical work at the property is extremely minor. I believe Erica and I both share that opinion. Anyway, recently added to the punch list was that we have to pay a acceptance fee. Erica, do you happen to have the one that I sent you? The other day where I had my comments already in here?
Erica, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Andy, it'll take me just a second to pull it up. So if you could work off of this for a minute and then I'll get it to you.
Okay, because that'll be easier, I think, because it's in writing. But the street acceptance fee, I don't know if it's really a punch list item. It's an item that has to get paid when the road I'm not sure when it gets paid, but I would assume after a vote or something. It's not something to do at the moment. Written approval from the Conservation Commission. I wrote to the Rebecca, and she wants us to provide a letter from a wetland scientist that, the wetland issue, the wetland, anything to do with the wetland issues in there have been properly completed.
Okay, Andy, here is the revised version that you had sent, okay?
Thank you. That makes it easier for me. So we need to get a wetland scientist out there to sort of write that, for lack of a better way of saying it, everything's fine. I will tell you that one of the previous Conservation Commission agents released all of the conservation bond money already because they thought that everything was done. So I think we're in good shape on that item. Obtain the recommendation from DPW. Erica told me she would handle this, as I'm sure you all know, that the DPW directors that were sort of around or employed by the town while we were building, they're no longer there. So the current one, I guess he would just do a drive-by, but so number 3, Erica said she would handle.
Is that, Erica, can you confirm that?
So I'm happy to facilitate working with the new DPW director to see if he could make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. It wouldn't be just a drive-by. He and I would have to walk the site, and any additional items that he saw that I or niche engineering missed would get included on that punch list item. So
I mean,
okay.
In fairness, so to speak, there was a DPW director that put together a punch list. Everything that was on his punch list is done. Then we obviously had niche engineering prior to us paving, who gave us things that had to be completed, and those have been done. So I don't know if it's really fair to have somebody else now.
Well, bottom line is there needs to be DPW approval for the road acceptance. So it's the current DPW will have to sign off on it. But I think we can move past this one and keep going down.
Number 4, loam and seed behind the asphalt. That's been the new granite, not granite, the new curbing that we installed. That was completed a long time ago. Quite some time ago.
Yep, that's why it's crossed out. We can skip down to number 5.
Number 5, the PVC pipe has been cut down. Done today.
So this will be done, or it has been done?
It's done. It was just a pipe that was sticking up, 36 inches of plastic pipe. Just needed to be cut and capped. Okay. So it's done. We wanted to coordinate that being done. It was such a small thing with the installation of the ADA panels on the sidewalks.
Which is number 7 right here?
Yep. And I believe those are now done. If they're not done, I think there were 7 of them to put down. 5 of them are done. They'll do the last 2 tomorrow, but basically done.
Okay.
The number 8, there's nothing for us to do at this present time. We did already clean the stormwater management system, and I think the town wants to take reinspect it in the spring again. So there's no work required now.
Okay.
Number 9, we have engaged 4th generation electric company to install the street light, and they're currently just working with National Grid to get National Grid's input on, how to come off the pole and where they want the meter and so forth. Number 10 is done. We submitted a letter to the town saying that it was a minor thing. I installed as the developer sprinkler irrigation in the grass strips next to the sidewalk so that they would stay nice and green. So Erica wanted a letter, or the planning board wanted a letter saying that if the roads are accepted, there's a damage to a sprinkler head or something, that the HOA would not hold the town responsible. So it was a very simple letter. We've submitted it. That's done.
And Erica, you received that letter, right? I think you mentioned.
I did receive
Okay.
that letter, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Number 11, remove erosion controls. The Concom said that they cannot be removed until after we submit the letter from the wetland scientist. We can't do it.
Andy, can I ask you, do you have a certificate of compliance from the Concom?
No.
Okay. So I think that's part of this requirement. Is that correct, Erica?
Yes, so as part of the conservation's approval process, they'll need to issue that certificate of compliance.
Okay, so sorry, I think that was back up in number 2 or 3. Andy, do you know when you will be getting the certificate of compliance from the Conservation Commission?
We would move to do it immediately. I'm going to get a wetland scientist out there and get her the letter that she wanted. Again, the previous Concom administrator, thought everything was in very good shape, growing fine, and she released our entire bond. So, the work is work. Any work we had to do was done. The site has very little wetlands on it. The only wetland really is the crossing. Where we,
Okay.
none of the lots required any order of conditions.
Okay, go ahead.
Install any additional open space markers at the direction of Concom. Again, I wrote to the Concom a letter asking them if they know of any that need to be installed. A previous agent already walked the entire site and that was done. So that agent was happy with it, that it was completed. So
do you have an email or anything or meeting minutes to reflect that?
No, but I don't have anything in writing. It was just something that the agent wanted to be done, and if we didn't do it, they were going to stop, signing off on COs. So we did it. And that was the end of it. It's the open space markers are like a 2 by 2 inch little piece of metal with open space.
No, I think that's fine. I think just what Mark is asking, is there any documentation that the Concom's all set with that? Mark, my guess is as soon as the certificate of compliance is issued, that would be addressed with that because they would be looking at that as part of that. So once the certificate of compliance, Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, but once we have the certificate of compliance, we should assume all Concom issues are all set.
I mean, I can tell you that they were installed. Walked the site with Carol Dunbar.
That's fine. This is kind of a Concom issue. I think we're just following up on.
Yeah, I was just trying to streamline. If you had that in writing that it was all set, then it would become a non-issue. But yeah, okay.
There was never a requirement for me to get something that said it was done.
Okay, we can.
Okay.
12, or sorry.
Well,
13.
If we could come back to the.
Come back to 13?
Yeah, if we could skip to 15, that would be better.
13 and 14 will skip?
Yep.
Okay.
Fred Hamway did write the request was for Fred Hamway, who was the inspecting engineer during the entire time we were building out there, except for the top coat. The request was for Fred Hamway, Hamway Engineering, to write a letter, and he did. That was that the work that he inspected was done properly.
Yeah, Eric, I think the site plans are all fine. It's only the as-built that are outstanding. Is that correct?
The as-built and the street acceptance plans.
But 15 has
So
to
is
be-
that number 13 and 14 that we just skipped over?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Okay, all right. So 15 is basically set. It's okay. It's just we'll come back to 13 and 14.
Right. I mean, 15, what I will say is 15 does relate back to the as-built plans though, because niche engineering is going to need to review
Yeah.
the plans against the approved site plans from the planning board and make sure that there's no major deviations and that essentially it's in conformance. So.
Yeah.
And then they'll have
Yeah,
to
that's part of the
also
as-built
write.
process.
Exactly. And then they'll also have to write written approval.
Okay.
16 is it's a deed, I think, convey title to the streets and utility easements. It's not time yet to do it. My lawyer would handle it.
Actually,
this one
and
hasn't-
your,
Sorry, go ahead, Erica.
I am sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say that's not entirely correct. So it is on the developers. It's the developer's responsibility to provide the town with a draft deed, and then our town council will review, and then essentially after town meeting it'll be signed. But that is something that you should provide to the town.
Yes, I know that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, no, I know. We have to give you a deed.
Okay.
But it's my lawyer would do it, and not sure when you need the deed, but it's not.
At this point, with just deadlines, I think all of this stuff is as soon as possible to give people, the correct people to review it, the time that they need.
Yep, I understand. And convey the open space to the Bolton Conservation Trust, basically the same as 16.
So that hasn't been done, and that still needs to be conveyed.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there any time frame when that's going to be completed?
Well, yeah, we would handle it in the next 30 days, but we've skipped over some of the bigger. We have a couple big things to discuss. So if we
Sure, I guess I think what Mark is getting to, and Erica, we can, once we kind of go through these individual items, we can kind of show up the timeline that we're kind of dictated by. So, some of these two, like these last two things, number 16 and 17, correct me if I'm wrong. I think, that stuff needs to be into the planning board by February 25th. When we don't need to jump to the time frame right now, but just, I think that's kind of one of those deadlines that may need to be, that information, I think is the correct deadline. We can talk about that in a second, but so if you're saying it's going to be done, it can be done within a month, and that would meet that time frame.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, well, at this point, we're starting to get into the meat of what I think we have to talk about. So if you want to go, can you just scroll to the bottom for a second? Oh, we have a very small pile of asphalt pieces to take off the site. It's probably half of a loader bucket full. When we did the paving out there, the part of the contract was for aggregate to remove all of the berm and asphalt and take it off the site, because we ripped up 4,000 or 5,000 feet of berm. So they took all that. This little pile, they thought had too much rocks in it and dirt. So, but it's minuscule. So anyway, I just got to find somebody to remove it. It's really minor. Like I said.
So you're referring to number 22 right now. That will be done.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't even know why it's really part of road acceptance, but
Just closing everything up and making sure everything is set, Andy. It's,
yeah,
you know,
well,
just part of the punch list of things that need to be done.
well, this little pile is not in phase. It's in phase 3. It's not in phase 2 or 4. It's you know, it's still a construction site out there. Anyway, but it's not in. Yeah, it says right on here, it's in phase 3, so don't really know what it has to do with the road punch list. In any event, we'll take care of it. So if we can go back to the big issues, I think, to talk about tonight have to do with the real estate taxes. And that's a segue into the as-built plans.
Sure. You want to start with, I think was 18, which is the pay the taxes?
Yeah. I contacted the town last September or August and asked, I stopped in the administrator's office, Mr. Lowe's office, and asked him about a payment plan for the taxes. And he said that's something that the town normally does do. And he said, talk to the treasurer. Treasurer said, well, you're going to speak to the lawyer who's handling, the collection of the taxes, legal back taxes. Up to Mr. Coppola, and he said, well, yeah, that is something the town, does. Let me talk to the treasurer. And then he got back to me and he said, the town does not want to do a payment plan. He wrote a letter that they did not want to do a payment plan. Now, so that inability to, I don't have the ability to pay back all the back taxes in one swoop here. I do have the ability to, pay the down payment, which is 25%, and then make monthly payments and get them paid. But the problem, what happened is because initially the town said they didn't want to do a payment plan, we did not tell the engineers to start on the as-built plans. Well, after some of the residents asked, why can't there be a payment plan on the taxes? The town sent me out documents a week and a half ago. So now there is the opportunity to do a payment plan. So the payment plan would require us to, do a down payment of 25% and then make monthly payments and bring the taxes current. But that leads, so the question to the planning board, I guess, is, does that satisfy you? That's number one. The next
So
thing,
I guess, oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry. Thank you, Daniel. The next thing is that because I did not give the green light to the engineers to start the as-bills, because without a payment plan, we were sort of dead in the water.
So Andy, before we jump on to the as-built, do you want to just kind of deal with number 18 first? And then we kind of go to the as-built?
If I can have 15 seconds.
Sure. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. So in other words, now that we just got the payment plan about 10 days ago or so, and the document. So now that we have that, I called up Dillis and Roy and said, we're going to need as-bills. And they said, we can have them done by March 15th, or before March 15th. So now that doesn't meet time frame. Now, when I spoke to them, I was under the impression that the time frame for having the as-built was February 25th, because I had gotten a letter, which I can put up on the screen. Not blaming Erica, but I'm just explaining what happened. Erica didn't do anything wrong, but I did get a letter back, I think it was December 20th, that said the date, the as-built plans, February 25th. Well, yesterday, I got a revised timetable, and that now is January 25th. So when Stan Dillis said he could have it by March 15th, I thought we were only going to be 2 weeks off, and maybe he'd get it done a little early and, get a little 2-week accommodation. But now it's January 25th. So in any event.
So Andy,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I do want to touch upon the as-built and the deadlines and stuff, but I think I think we might be able to just talk about the taxes first and then kind of move to that next one. So I just want to backtrack. I was talking with Erica earlier today, and just to be clear, I don't believe the town ever said that they would not do a payment plan with you. So I just want that to be clear. Erica, can you expand a little bit more upon that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So yes, the town was always willing to enter into a payment plan with Andy. However, they were not willing to enter into a payment plan and then stop the foreclosure process. So that was where there was, I believe, a disagreement. So again, the town was willing to enter into a payment plan as long as the foreclosure process continued.
And so now, I just wanted kind of to clarify that for everyone. It's my understanding.
Can I share my screen? I have the letter right here. And I mean, the letter I got says, if I could share my screen, you could read it, but it says, "Hello, Andrew. This is September 1 from James Coppola. I have spoken with the treasurer, and at this time, she is not willing to enter into a formal payment agreement with you and place the foreclosure case in abeyance." So Erica is correct. But on the other hand, she's not correct. So, they definitely denied doing a payment plan. And I don't quite understand how you can have a payment plan and then at the same time foreclose. So in other words, if you say to somebody, okay, we're going to allow you to pay this over 2 years, but we're not going to stop the foreclosure. And if we get to the foreclosure in 3 months, we're going to foreclose. That's not a payment plan. Now, maybe there was a disconnect.
Well, I don't want to go into all the details because this wasn't with the planning board, this agreement. This was just, a summary. So I just wanted to kind of clarify your statement so it was a little bit more clear. It's my understanding
I'd like to submit whether it's submitting it for the record, I don't know, but if you, there is a letter.
You can email the letter to Erica so that she's got that.
Yep.
Okay, then I think that's fine. Okay, I think at this point, it's my understanding that the town has emailed you 2 separate payment plans to go over. None of them have been executed, none of them have been approved of. So, at this point, we can't do anything with regard to the taxes other than wait for that to be executed. Once it is fully executed, because the payment of the back taxes is part of our bylaws, we would need a, sorry, is it subdivision? Is that right, Erica?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, subdivision rules and regs. We would need a waiver regarding the back taxes. So that's something the planning board can entertain, waiving that because, but I guess I wouldn't, the planning board would not want to entertain that first until a fully executed payment plan has been signed and executed. Once that's executed, then in order for us to waive that, it needs to be at a public meeting. So it needs to be advertised. So as soon as that agreement is executed, if you want to let Erica know, then we can put it on the agenda to be advertised. So it's a fully open public hearing that we can actually waive that subdivision rules and regs if the planning board so decides to do that. So that's kind of the process for that with regard to the planning board.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
It does, I guess, look, the reason why, I lost millions of dollars on this project, and I'm sorry that the taxes are not current. But I guess, based on the situation I'm in, for me to execute the payment plan, which I am willing to do if that's going to lead to road acceptance, this year, this spring, I would happily do that. But I'd sort of like to know if I do that and I pay the $100,000 down payment necessary, required under the payment plan up front, there's a substantial down payment. I don't want to do that and then find out later, well, geez, no, we're not going to, it's not going to, we don't care. Is there any way to take a straw vote? So I have, like something.
Are you talking with regard to the waiver of whether the planning board would waive the that requirement? Is that what you're kind of asking for?
Yes.
Just to get an understanding from, okay,
Yes.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So,
For me right now, that's a big,
yeah, no, I think that's a fair question. And while we certainly can't take that vote tonight, I think just for the board members, what Andy's asking is eventually, if that agreement is executed and approved, he would then put it through the planning board for a public hearing, basically asking for a waiver because the taxes would be paid on a payment plan and not just paid all in full. Our subdivision rules and regs actually require it to be paid all in full. So, my feeling on this is because there would be, if it was fully executed, because it would be an agreement between the town and Andy, I wouldn't see any reason why we wouldn't provide that waiver. But if you other members on the board would be want to provide comments or suggestions on, again, this is not an official vote. This is just more of a comment. I think that's, Andy, that's basically what you're looking for, correct?
Yes. I would add, that the town's level of security doesn't change at all if you accept the roads. In other words, towns, when my house is up for sale, that, for example, is where most of the back taxes are owed. The town is the first person to get paid, whether you accept the roads or not. That doesn't change the fact that when anything gets sold, the town is the first person who gets paid. They get paid before any mortgages or anything. So, and that's not affected if you accept the road.
I mean, I personally, I think as long as there's an agreement with a tax collector in place, and a letter from the tax collector just stating that there's a payment plan in effect. I mean, I'm okay I'd be okay with waiving that. Yes, Andy, you won't hear me say that very often, but.
Look, I appreciate it. I'm sorry. I've never been in this, I've done a lot of developing over my lifetime. And I've never been in this situation, and I appreciate any help that you can provide. My house is for sale, and I'm sure it'll sell. That I think will take care of whatever. It's a high percentage of it. There's another house. The only other house that I own up there has some back taxes on it, and that's already under agreement to be sold. So, the figure would get knocked down quickly, but
no, I know. I think the main thing, at least from my perspective, I think Mark, exactly what you said. There's a signed agreement, executed fully agreement between the town and Andy with regard to the taxes.
Very grateful.
Yeah. So once that was executed, it's. Is there anyone else from the on the board that would like to make a comment?
I'm okay with that as well. I think that's a solid plan.
Agreed.
All right. So I think, Andy, does that give you at least some
Yeah,
I
thank you
guess
very much.
level of comfort.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so I think this goes to the next big item, which is with regard to the as-built and the time limit or the time frame kind of moving up towards road acceptance. Erica, it might make sense at this point. So number 13 and 14 are basically, number 14 is a submission of as-built plans, and number 13, sorry, I get a scroll there. Thank you. Street acceptance plans. So those both need to be submitted. Then they need to be reviewed and approved by niche, and then final plans need to be submitted to the Board of Selectmen. You know, they won't be final until the planning board has kind of with niche reviewed and approved them, and then they get immediately submitted to the Board of Selectmen, and then there's kind of that process. So, you know, I think Erica, if you want to show up the timelines that you had kind of outlined. So if we can just zoom in on that, because sorry, that's really small. Okay, thank you. So actually, if we want to kind of backtrack from the bottom, town meeting, I think, is May 3rd. Yeah, thank you. May 3rd. You know, kind of going backwards, Friday, April 23rd is the approved street acceptance plans built that must be filed with the town clerk. And then if you kind of go back from this, basically March 11th is when the Board of Selectmen must vote at a public hearing for any of the stuff that's going to go on the warrant. This timeline that's in front of us right now is a timeline that we did not develop. Actually, Erica met with the town administrator, and he actually kind of went through and gave us these timelines. So this is not coming from the planning board. It's actually coming from the Board of Selectmen, except for the first, I think the January, when we kind of get back up to the January 25th and it is ours. But basically this was a timeline that's kind of, the Board of Selectmen has pretty strict guidelines for how they have to approve road acceptance. So we don't really have much say in that. So kind of looking at this, I think, Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, when you had mentioned the end of last year, as built by February 25th, those were approved as built, assuming that they were final. And I think we've mentioned, Andy, multiple times that we kind of needed the as built as soon as possible. So, we right now have tentatively January 25th for the as builts to be submitted, just to be able to give niche some time to review them. It was told to us, and Eric, if you want to expand upon this, but that February 18th is when the Board of Selectmen is looking for final signed off as-built plans. So that's the time deadline. So in order for us to even get them to them by the 18th, we need to have some time to review them. So Eric, I don't know if you want to expand upon this at all.
Yes, that's correct. So in order for the Board of Selectmen to be prepared to discuss the as-built at their February 25th meeting, they do need a little bit of time to review it themselves. So this is standard procedure for them. They request submittals to be submitted to the town secretary 1 week in advance. So that's where the February 18th date came from. And just one point of clarification, the Board of Selectmen will close the warrant on March 25th. However, they will take their vote to bring forward this article for public way on March 11th. So that was the only thing I wanted to clarify on that.
So, and just to add to that, typically what the Board of Selectmen would look from the planning board is not only just the final as-built plans, but they look for a report, from us, noting that everything's in order and all this other type of stuff, and that, the punch list has pretty much been addressed. So our obligation is to get that to the Board of Selectmen by, I think that's March 4th. So really, for us to be able to kind of prepare that report and kind of know, you know, we just went through all the checklist items, that those are all done. You know, we would need that in advance of March 4th for us to be able to prepare that report. So, I mean, I was saying February 25th because I think that's really kind of the deadline for us with regard to if everything's in by February 25th, then we can kind of say, okay, we can start preparing that report to give to the Board of Selectmen no later than March 4th. So I think the one concern, obviously, you've mentioned, Andy, is your as-built aren't going to get in until March 15th. So I'm not sure where to go with that with regard to this time frame right here.
I mean, I would certainly be willing to speak to Stan Dillis and offer an incentive or beg him or, you know, plead with him, whatever I have to do. You know, the just the question, I guess. So there was a, you know, is the date February 25th or is it January 25th? January 25th, it's just like.
So we were originally asking them for January 25th because the Board of Selectmen is asking for the as-built plans by February 18th. So that was a deadline that the town administrator gave Erica.
I mean, keep in mind, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not trying to cast any aspersions at all. But on, I think, December 20th, which there were all the first three bullets did not exist. And I got the timetable and it was February, you know, first thing was February 25th. The other bullets, you know, if I could share my screen, I have when I was sent at that time. So, you know, that was the first three bullets don't exist on the, what I was told on December 20th.
Danielle, can I just speak to that, please?
Yes.
So that email had quite a bit of information in it. So one of the things that I had sent him was the timetable for Board of Selectmen and their meeting dates. So that had that February 25th date, at which time they would be initially reviewing the as-built plans. In my email to Andy, I specifically said that niche engineering would need to do their review in January. Because the Board of Selectmen hadn't set their meeting dates yet, I couldn't give him exact dates, but it's not far off from what was, you know, what is finalized to. It was very close. What I had sent in December is very close to this timetable.
Well, when I look,
if you review the punch list, for the as-built plans and the street acceptance plans, I had put on there, they should be done as submitted as soon as possible, and that's something that
I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. I'm saying that, you know, with what happened, you know, with what happened with the payment plan, and initially, you know, no, you can't have a payment, and then just anyway, we're a few weeks off. I guess the question is, you know, is there a way for us to, you know, get some leeway for 2 or 3 weeks? Because 2 or 3 weeks, that's what we need. And, you know, we've got on the call here, on this Zoom thing here, there's 44 participants. About 35 of those are people that, you know, are from Bolton. These are residents and people that live in Bolton and pay taxes and vote, obviously. And I mean, the whole point of the town is to.
No, I respect that, Andy, and I appreciate the fact that there are so many residents on. I think we've been working with you consistently, trying to move this process along. I think the tricky part here is we don't have a lot of flexibility with this timeline because it's not our schedule. It really is the Board of Selectmen's schedule. you know, our schedule is to get stuff in by February 25th.
I mean, is it worth asking?
So actually, at this point, does it make sense? I think we've kind of gone through all the things. I do see some comments in the chat room. I'd like to maybe just address a few of them and allow some of the residents to speak as well. So I'm going to jump to, I think one of them had asked, can we understand what is involved with a wetland compliance certificate? So that's actually a question for the Conservation Commission, but basically it's kind of like an as-built, but basically it just means it's a certificate of compliance that's issued to the Conservation Commission noting that everything was completed with regard to their order additions. It's just a final document that kind of notes that the Conservation Commission process is all set and done. So that's something that he would submit to the Conservation Commission, and then they would issue that certificate. He would submit a request for certificate of compliance, and then the Conservation Commission would issue a COC, and that basically closes out that process. Just kind of going down, I think we're talking about the time frame right now, and I believe I have a resident, Avery DeHaven, that would like to speak. So if you want to unmute.
Yes, thank
yourself.
you. It's actually Melissa DeHaven, sorry, because of remote learning, my daughter often gets the lead here. So thank you for the opportunity to speak here, and thank you for allowing us to listen in on this. I think as you saw and heard, you know, there's still a number of items that have to be completed, and we've worked with Andy for quite a long time now to make sure that those get done. You know, we're at his mercy, essentially. This is an entire community within Bolton now, long established. Our children are in the school system. We have roots here in this community, and we are at his mercy. And it plagues me to think that his personal home here in this community and the tax implications of that have something to do with our ability to get this road accepted and to become formally part of this community with the roads, with the mail, etc. And I'm very concerned about that. But there is only so much we can do. So I'm begging you to understand a little bit more about how we as residents in this community can help to deal with this situation, because I think Andy has made his position pretty clear financially. And if that cannot be overcome, I'm very concerned about, you know, the future of this community.
Thank you. I'll just, I appreciate your comment. With regard to the taxes, I actually think that the town and Andy has come to an agreement, and that's what that payment plan is that we were talking about. So while there is in our subdivision bylaws a requirement to pay back, you know, back taxes, we were noting that we would be willing to waive that once the agreement between the payment plan between Andy and the town is executed. It just needs, there's a little bit of a process because it's a waiver. It just needs to be done at a public hearing. It can't just be done tonight, so to speak. So I don't think the board is at all going to hold that up. I think, you know, you heard from some of the members. So I think we understand that concern and that issues. And I think at least at this point, it seems like that may pretty much be, you know, it's not 100% resolved, but it's pretty close. And we definitely can get there. So the fact that there is an agreement out there just needs to be executed, and then a waiver just needs to be granted from the planning board for that aspect of it. Was there?
Thank you. That's very helpful for us to understand, because that really monopolized a lot of our conversations lately as a community.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's helpful.
No, I understand that's a big concern. This is actually a good time, I guess I would ask if there are other, so I mean, we kind of went through that whole punch list, you know, as everyone is aware there are still several items. I think time frame wise, if we take the as-built plan just off the plate for a second, Andy, I think what we're looking for is all of those other items, the open space that needs to be deeded over, the appraisal. I don't think we touched upon that. That still has not been submitted to us. That needs to be submitted to us so we can review it and improve it. So this stuff needs to be, at the latest would be February 25th. Obviously, we'd like a little bit of leeway, if it could be done a little earlier in February, that would be great. But really, we need to have the majority of all this stuff buttoned up into the planning board, all of the additional documentation that we talked about, by February 25th at the latest, so we can issue that report to the Board of Selectmen on March 4th. I'm not sure.
Danielle, that's February 18th, not the 25th.
Oh, okay. Am I misspeaking here?
We need to submit final plans to
yeah, I
the Board of
was
Selectmen.
excluding just the as-built. I was talking about like the open space, like excluding the as-built stuff. Everything else needs to kind of come to us before the 25th, so that way we can know on the 25th, we've pretty much got everything in place, so we can submit that report to the Board of Selectmen on March 4th. I think the one outstanding item that I just don't have a workaround right now is the as-built plans that need to be in before the 18th to be able to get them to the selectmen by the 18th, February 18th. I don't know if other board members have comments on that. I just this wasn't our time frame. This was given to us, by the town administrator.
Danielle, can I make one?
I'm sorry, Erica, I can't quite hear you. Can you repeat?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Great. I was just going to say it may be prudent to move that date to February 24th, because that's when the planning board meets in February. We meet the 10th and the 24th.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I was thinking the 25th was our meeting. So yes, yeah,
25th
right.
is
That
Board
would
of
be the 25th.
Selectmen. Yeah. Okay.
Erica, you said the selectmen are closing the warrant on the March 25th.
That is correct.
Is there any way we could push their vote to the 25th instead? I know they don't want to do that, but could we push their vote to the 25th instead of the 11th? Or you'd have to talk to Don about that.
So when I met with Don on Monday, we spent quite a bit of time going through these dates, and he relayed to me, because I asked him, I said, is there any flexibility, in this timetable? Because I knew it would come up during this meeting. And he said, no, these are hard deadlines. So I don't expect there to be any flexibility here.
Okay.
I do have actually John Bailowitz, if you want, as a resident that would like to speak.
Hi, Danielle. Thanks. John Ballas, 21 Center Circle. Couple points. So I do appreciate, I know Melissa made some good points, and you guys have seemed to make amends and figured out the taxes piece. So that's great. I know in our discussions with Andy over the past few months, he was waiting for this tax decision before jumping through all the other ones and giving the go and making the payments to get the civil engineering work done. So I guess a little bit in his defense, he was waiting for that closure, and whether he read it right or wrong, I think the letter from the town lawyer was a bit ambiguous about saying no payment plan in conjunction with dropping the lien or what have you, the foreclosure. So what I would ask, and I think Erica, you sort of touched on that while I was kind of waiting to speak. I think some of these dates, while they're not defined by the planning board, what is the opportunity for the residents to have a discussion with the administrator or the selectmen to push for some leeway? There's two things I can see that I don't really understand the dates, other than they're being set in stone for no significant reason other than that's probably meeting dates. I think there should be some leeway in the selectmen and the planning and the town planners flexibility for this if it's a week or two in order to get this road on the agenda. And Andy's commitment from Dillis is on or before the 15th, as I read it in that letter. And I would request Andy significantly pressure Dillis to pull that date in based on the timelines that you give him today. And I would request that he'd come back with a better date than the 15th. I think if those two things are done, Andy pushing on his side, and whatever these residents and yourselves can help to have a discussion with the town planner and the selectmen to at least give a little bit of flexibility on this would go a long way in helping the residents kind of see into fruition what we've been pushing for 3 years now. You know, you've seen Vince and I and others on these meetings quite often, and I think we've gotten pretty far to have to wait another year.
I appreciate that. Thanks, John. Erica, do you want to just comment on, is there an avenue for them with regard to reaching out to the Board of Selectmen and seeing if this timeframe can be modified?
They can certainly reach out to our town administrator at any time if they, so choose to. So that would be Don Lowe. And he works directly with the Board of Selectmen.
I think the March 25th date is a hard date based on a certain number of days before town meeting. So I don't think that can change. I don't know if any of these other dates could be changed along the way.
Sure. I mean, I would hope that, and hearing everything that Andy proposed to start, starting with signing the tax payment agreement, I would say tomorrow, and start the process there, and push his lawyer to start the process with all the other pieces here, as well as push Dillis to pull the date in. As long as Andy commits to do that, I think 30, 40 residents that you have here are willing to sign a petition or whatever's the best function for us to engage with the town administrator to give us a little flexibility based on the engineering work that needs to be done. And I don't know how much Dillis can pull it in, but hearing on or before leads me to believe it's priority based, and they should be able to pull that in if the right request is made.
That's a good, actually, along with that, taking the as-built out, I guess with all of the other agreements that need to be done, the open space, the appraisal, like, the digital stuff. I mean, is that something that you realistically think all of those things can be submitted, by mid to late February? I think you may be, I don't see you, but you may be mute. I don't hear you.
I was instructed to mute if you're not talking. Right?
Thank you.
I don't know. I don't know if you can see me.
Yep, we can.
Yeah,
yep.
see you now.
Okay. I can put in a hell of an effort and hopefully have it, done. It's not all in my control. I could obviously talk to Stan Dillis. I mean, I was their largest client for many, many years. But I'm like he said to me, I mean, I'm not their only client, and they have commitments. But I mean, I think if we, if there was any way to get like, the end of February or, mid-March, I think we could pull it off. I do. It's just,
I think mid-March is not going to be as feasible. I think we really need to shoot for the end of February on this. Just if, to kind of get everything in there. And then as a separate track item, we, Erica, if you want to facilitate reaching out to, or I guess you've already talked to the Board of Selectmen, so maybe it's really, I think it might be helpful to have, a letter. I don't want to speak on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, of what they will entertain or what they will do, but I would, that may be a good way or a good approach to, to have some signatures to ask for some leniency with regard to some of these deadlines.
Can you repeat that, Daniel?
Sure. I was actually more just speaking to the residents if if you will reach out to the Board of Selectmen with regard to these deadlines that we were given, kind of having, as John had mentioned, a letter of petition, just asking for some leniency with regard to some of these deadlines, and knowing that, we're Andy's hope close with some of these submissions. We just need you guys just need a little bit of some leeway. Just keep in mind that, the as-built, when it's submitted, it does need to be reviewed by niche before it can be approved. So just because it's being submitted and done, we need to have, there's got to be like, some time there for some review to approve it. Yeah, go ahead, Erica.
I just wanted to add a couple of things to our discussion. So
Yes.
In regards to the as-built plans, that also includes setting the monuments. That has not been done. So that's also a vital piece to the as-built and the street acceptance plans. That'll need to be completed. And then I think we skipped over a couple of the outstanding items when we went through this list. Andy still is required to submit the insurance policy as part of our surety, and that has not been done as promised. And then I think the only other thing is that we do have an outstanding balance with niche, and that has not been paid. Thanks.
And the appraisal for the affordable lot.
Correct. Actually, we didn't really talk about that specifically. So yes.
Yeah, I mentioned it just in briefing, but that is those last couple items that we kind of skipped over on the punch list are, I think, those items, Erica, that you're just talking about right now.
Yeah.
So Andy, they're all on the punch list. They still, I think the appraisal needs to be submitted so we can review it.
Yep.
And again, some of these are just documentations that just need to be submitted, but a couple of them have some review.
I think if you look at the other update that we were looking at, I was waiting just to see how this meeting goes, because if there's, if we get a little bit of leeway to submit the plans, yeah, then you need the money to review them. And the same thing with the insurance policy. I mean, if the roads aren't being accepted this year, no point in an insurance policy on them. They have to be re-inspected next year anyway. So I was just waiting to see how we did this, how this meeting went, and it's gone. I mean, I think, you've been very nice and cordial, and I appreciate everything. I hope that by end of February, I can have everything to you. I wish it was March 15th. I know it. Obviously, that's because, first of all, that's what Stan Dillis said.
So I guess what I wouldn't want to do is, I don't want to just wait until the end of February to have a meeting. I guess what is the next steps, Andy, you would like to do for this?
Well, is it it's February? Is the date that you're saying the as-built have to be in February 24th?
I mean, right now the as-bills are the unknown question, because that's kind of a deadline that's being given to us by the Board of Selectmen. And basically they're asking for them from us by February 18th, final as-built plans. So I think that's where, the request needs to be made to the Board of Selectmen to ask them, is there some leniency that could be given on this deadline? Talking from what Erica had mentioned, talking with Don Lowe, it doesn't seem like there is, but again, who knows, maybe that could be changed. But that's right now. Sorry, go ahead.
I just said 20 or 30 emails might go a long way to nudge that date a little bit.
Yeah, everybody's trying, and we're all trying to get the roads accepted this year.
Yeah, so I think that the as-built deadline is, well, we need to review it and approve it. What we need to do is understand if the Board of Selectmen will grant some leniency, what is that date? And then just back it up, 1 or 2 weeks before that. So that way we have time, or Niche has time to review it. Erica, what did Niche need? Did they say it was 2 weeks or?
Yeah, there needs to be, I would say at least 2 weeks, because they
2 weeks, okay.
review it, they will likely need to do a site visit. And then if there are any modification changes that need to be made, there will be a back and forth between them and Dillis and Roy. So it seems simple, and it relatively is, but there is that back and forth, and there's always time associated with that. So that's why they asked for January 25th. There may be a little bit of leniency there, but I don't think there's going to be significant leniency, because just like Dillis and Roy, they're also busy. So yeah, and just one other thing, Danielle.
We have no chance of getting this stuff in for January 25th.
I'm sorry, Andy, what's that?
I have no chance of getting this in by January 25th.
No, I think we understand that. So I think what it's a little bit out of our hands. So I think the ask is to ask the Board of Selectmen if they can waive or the February 18th deadline that was given to us, if they can push that. If they're able to push that, further into February or even beginning of March, whatever deadline they give you, back that up 2 weeks, that's the deadline we would need. So for example, let's just say the Board of Selectmen was amenable to pushing, the February 18th deadline to March 4th, just for example. I don't know if they're willing to push it out that much, but maybe they would be. If they would be willing to allow final plans on March 4th, sorry, I'm just looking at my calendar right here. We would need them before 2 weeks beforehand. So by February 18th to be able to, February 18th is 2 weeks beforehand. So we would just, for example, need the as-built to be submitted by February 18th so that we could give it to Niche. They could review it, do their back and forth, and then we could submit those to the Board of Selectmen by March 4th. So I think the leniency, it needs to come from the Board of Selectmen on this one point with regard to the as-builts.
Do you think that our best bet would be to attend the selectmen meeting?
I'm sorry, what was, I missed the last part of that.
Do you think the best forum for myself and the residents is to attend a selectmen meeting and ask?
I don't know if it needs to be attendance or if you can just submit letters. I mean, I'm not on that board.
When is the next meeting?
They're on Thursdays. Is it tomorrow?
The next meeting is tomorrow. That's correct. So that decision would be up to the town administrator and the chair of that board. So that request would need to go to them. And Danielle, just for my.
Okay.
I'm getting a little off topic, but I just wanted a little bit of further clarification for the appraisal. Are in regards to like deadlines for that, are we talking about just the appraisal or the actual fee in lieu, which is the permit condition, the affordable housing payment?
So what needs, I guess, what's the requirement?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what it is that we're requiring.
I think the selectmen are going to require the fee in lieu be paid. So the appraisal is to get a number that's brought to the planning board that we agree to. So we come to an agreement on what that fee is, and then the fee is paid.
That is correct. Or we could go off of the old appraisal, but I don't think Andy is amenable to that.
Correct.
Yes.
I mean, I think what you're going to find is when the new appraisal is done, is that the amount that was paid is probably double what it should have been.
I do have one resident, Vince, that would like to just bring up a point. You can go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Danielle. So just kind of moving forward here. So just looking back at history, right? So last year at this time, a little earlier than this time, the reason we didn't get the roads approved this year was because we had bad weather, right? Andy had waited basically to the last minute to get things approved. We had weather that wasn't favorable to what needed to get done, so we had to push it to next year. That was it. The reason that a lot of this isn't done now, to Andy's own acknowledgement, is because he wasn't given the payment plan, right? So Andy got denied a payment plan. That's his understanding. Nothing got done. He reached back out to the town. They gave him a payment plan. Now we're rushing, right? So we're going to reach out to Don, and I'm just looking forward here. So we're going to reach out to Don tomorrow. If the selectmen say no, and this doesn't get approved, we're in the exact same position this time next year, rushing, right? Because this is history tends to repeat itself. So I'm just trying to find a path forward here that we can, make sure that, God forbid, it doesn't get approved this year. We can find a better way forward next year, because we continue to be in this situation where we wait to the last minute and now it's rush, rush, rush. We've all known these things have to happen, but Andy has decided, and rightfully so, he's acknowledged that he's not going to make the payments on these things if it's not going to get approved, right? So understandable, that's his position. That's going to be his position tomorrow. If Don says no, that'll be his position this time next year. So I just think, we got to get ahead of this a little bit. You guys have been incredible to work with. You've had a ton of leniency, and we all appreciate that. We acknowledge that. Every one of us would acknowledge that. But I just want to make sure we can avoid this from repeating itself again. If we don't see a path forward this year, we got to figure this thing out, because I'd hate to be here 2 years from now.
I agree. I think all those comments are understandable, and I think the one thing here is the as-bills have kind of always been there. Obviously the paving needed to be done in order to do the as-built. So I think the difference between last year and this year is there was still a fair amount of construction items that needed to be done. The actual construction items at this point on the punch list are very small. There's very little left. So that's a good point. So weather's not really, an aspect for this portions of it. It's really all the paperwork and, the buttoning up of all of the additional items.
No, so Daniel, last thing I'll say, you and I are in complete agreement with all that. And as Andy has said, a lot of these things are minor items. It doesn't take much time. Unfortunately, time is not on our side, right? So regardless of whether or not that happens now or next year, if we're in the same position, whether it's a minor item or a major item, it's still preventing us residents from getting what we're trying to accomplish. And I think we're all on the same page here. We all want the same thing, but we still, the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again. We're trying to expect a different result. Here we are again. And you've all done more than you've needed to try to get us here. And we're just trying to get over the finish line. So I'm just trying to get ahead of it, because we probably won't be on the agenda again if we get denied. I'd love us to try to come up with a plan forward if we do get denied this year, so we're not in the same position again. Hopefully that's not a problem. Hopefully we get pushed forward this year. We'll do our due diligence as a community. We're going to reach out to Don. We'll push Andy, and hopefully he can work with the engineers to get this moved up. And hopefully that's not a conversation. However, if it is and we're not on the agenda again, I'm just asking you to consider another path forward next year, because I'd hate to be in the same situation we are again.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, I think we can consider that, Vince. Thank you. So I think we've kind of exhausted this. So I guess, Andy, is there anything more you wanted to add to this? Or do you, our next meeting is January, January 27th? Is that right?
I believe so.
January 27th.
Danielle, can I ask one
Yes.
more question? I'm sorry.
Yes. Right ahead.
Now, the John ballots again, which I'm not feeling super comfortable with, is actions of the residents that we're going to do. We have some request that you said we have to have a signed agreement to be able to have a hearing about the taxes on the next meeting. But I haven't heard yet that yes, Andy will provide you guys with a signed agreement by tomorrow for the tax plan, so we can put that on the agenda for the, before you get out of this meeting and the residents start pressing and Andy just waits again to see if the select accept an extension, because I don't want to leave this meeting with him just waiting for another extension. I'd like to have some actions and timelines on his side to close the taxes portion and commit to move forward with Dillis as well. And maybe in a couple of days, the residents will start pressing the administrator and the selectmen to try to give a little bit of leniency on the dates.
No, I think that's fine. So I think, Andy, I guess the question is, how soon can you get us the signed agreement for the back taxes? So then it can be put on the agenda for public hearing for the waiver to be issued.
I think that the first step is to talk to Don Lowe or the selectmen and see if we can get a time frame change, because right now it's like January 25th. So that's the problem. I mean, it's the as-built and that submission.
Well, today's January 13th, but yeah.
No, but the date that the as-built is supposed to be submitted based on the current schedule, it's, a week, it's a week and a half away. So whether I sign the, whether we have a payment agreement in place or not, we're not getting the roads accepted if that date doesn't get you.
I understand that. I guess what I think the residents are looking for is there's still, can some of the other items just be buttoned up and closed so that, they're kind of checked off and we're not waiting, another month or something for this plan.
What items, can you give me any?
Well, I guess.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be evasive. I'm not.
No, that's okay. I think with regard to the payment plan, because it needs to be publicly noticed and then approved. I mean, by the time from when we get the executed agreement, it's almost a month later from when that public hearing can happen, just because it needs to be noticed 14 days in advance of the hearing. So there's just some time associated with that now. So I think that's just one of the concerns of can that executed agreement be potentially, done as soon as possible, so that way we can get the waiver issued in a time frame.
I need to, there are some tweaks needed in the payment agreement, but so I can certainly work towards having the agreement ready for signature. But as far as signing it and at that time handing over $100,000 unnecessarily, if we're not going to have the roads accepted this year, I'd rather wait till my house sells and have the taxes paid when they possibly that way, rather than using up cash that I could pay somebody else with. So, I mean, all I'm trying to say is as far as getting the roads accepted, the key thing here is we cannot get it done if the date's January 25th, the as-built. So having my taxes paid is really not to me, the key here. The key is we need time to get we need enough time so that the engineer can do the as-built. That's what we need. John, does that address what you're asking?
Yeah, and you're basically saying that sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think the ask here is there are other things that are not related to the taxes or the as-built. Getting the sign off from conservation and getting the wetland person in to,
Yep. That's going to go forward anyway.
Okay. Do we have a time frame for that?
Normally it's going to be Dillis that does it, so I'm going to just tell him to go do the inspection and issue it. Yeah, I'm not going to hold up that. I'm not holding up anything like that. But the big dollars, paying those unnecessarily. For me right now, I could use it to pay somebody else if we're not going to get the roads accepted.
But I thought I heard that even though it says January 25th for the draft and February 25th for the final, Niche only really needs probably about 2 weeks. So if you work back from the final, you're really still talking about first or second week of February as a possibility with the dates that we have now. I don't see why we wouldn't just drive to that and push Dillis to pull that date in. I guess I'm
I have
missing.
not heard that, John. I have not heard that. The last thing I heard was that you have to, back off 2 weeks.
Yes, so the Board of Selectmen is actually
is
asking for them February 18th, not February 25th. So what the difference is we've been asking as the planning board, and I guess it would actually be February 24th because our meeting's on the 24th. We're asking as a planning board to have all approvals and paperwork and all that type of stuff in before February 24th, so that way we can prepare a report for the Board of Selectmen on March 4th. But right now the Board of Selectmen is asking for the final as-built plans on February 18th. So that's where the January 25th deadline is coming from.
So even if you back off 2 weeks from that, you're talking February 4th for the draft instead of January 25th.
Yeah, actually, you're right.
2 weeks.
Mark, you're right. Yeah, it's actually February 4th, not January 25th. So
well, it depends whether Niche can turn it in 2 weeks or whether they need 3.
yeah.
And
we might be able to push them to see if they
I
can.
mean, I can go back to Stan Dillis and say, hey, Stan, I'll pay extra. I'll do, it's not even the money with him. I'll offer it, but
I mean, honestly, if they're able to somehow turn around and say they can get the as-bills done by February 4th, then this time frame doesn't necessarily need to change, and we can potentially make it work. If it's going to be later than February 4th, then there needs to be an appeal to the Board of Selectmen to ask for some leniency to extend those dates.
I don't think I'm going to be able to get Stan Dillis to agree to February 4th. That's my problem. I mean, that's a big difference from March, on or before March 15th to February. It's a month and a half difference. It's a big difference.
But I think, and I'm sorry, I know I'm not supposed to address Andy, but I think for the residents to be able to request something in the selectmen, we'd have to have a date. I don't think going to say, oh, we'll have it by the 15th of March is really going to be acceptable. If Andy can get a better date by the end of the week after having a talk with Dillis so that the residents can do our part to try to help, I think that's the best way to go. I don't think going with the 15th and say we'll give it at the 15th and then they need 2 weeks to review it is a non-starter. So from my opinion as a resident in the neighborhood, I would say we need a better date improved by Dillis before we go to the selectman and the town administrator. And if that can be done by the end of the week would be perfect. And I'd be willing to commit to it.
I'm going to be on the phone with Stan Dillis tomorrow. But my guess is that, maybe he'll come to
I would just, press to him, obviously the urgency and the situation and everything. And Andy, once you have that date and you share that with the residents, if you can just also include Erica with that, just so that she's tied in with any timeframes, so we have an understanding of what you guys are shooting for.
Okay. I'm very grateful for the.
Actually, I just did. I did have one quick question, Andy. Is the residents had asked, is Dillis and Roy your only option to get the as-builts done?
They have a huge head start because they have all, as you know, you're an engineer.
Yeah.
They have all of the engineering in their computer already for the whole project. So, I mean, I will ask Stan if this is an issue relative to, a surveying issue, getting people out in the field. Because if it is, I mean, maybe he would accept somebody else's survey work, but I don't know if he would. It's his stamp.
I mean, they certainly wouldn't allow someone else's, from a different company, but you could potentially hire someone from a different company to do an as-built. It certainly doesn't need to be the design engineer. But I understand it's definitely a lot easier when it's the design engineer, because as you said, they have the base files, the CAD files, and to go from
They
there.
also did a lot of the as-built work as they went.
Yeah.
They had them do it.
But it might be worth just mentioning to them. I mean, if it's scheduled for them, that if there's another engineering firm you could reach out to. I mean, obviously you need to have the conversation with them to find out if it's feasible for them to reach a date, in February, preferably earlier February, but and then have that conversation, see what they say.
I mean, I'm trying to be realistic. My real guess is that, for them, they're probably going to say that the earliest they can get this done is towards the end of February.
Well, have that conversation, and then you can let the residents and Erica know what that date is. Just to answer Vince, from the planning board standpoint, it doesn't matter who it is. It just needs to be a stamped as built. We would then have niche approve or review according to the design plans.
Danielle, you're an engineer. Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yes, I mean, I know any engineer can go out and do an as-built, but they've got a lot of head start. I mean, they've got a lot of this already done. But you're saying anybody?
I'm sorry. No, I'm just saying you could have a survey. Any surveying firm out there can go ahead and do it, but you are correct in that it may be longer for them to do the work and to give you a plan. So you may be in the same situation, just unfortunately given the time frame right now. And Dillis and Roy are obviously very familiar with the project and have the ability to really tighten up that time frame if they're able to.
Okay. So anyway, I will be in touch with Stan Dillis and Greg Roy tomorrow, and get back to the steering committee and the residents.
Okay. Is there any other additional questions or comments? I apologize. I see that there are still chats going on. If I miss someone, if you want to go ahead and just ask your question. If it's already been addressed, I would just ask you to kind of hold off. But if it's something new that needs to be brought up, please feel free to state that now.
Yeah, Kevin Randall, 45 Mill Pond. Quick question. I'm sorry if this had been addressed, but the affordable housing payment, theoretically, if an appraiser rolls up tomorrow and delivers an appraisal that's half of what the payment was previously, like Andy believes to be true, what happens next? Are there decisions that need to be made, or are there reviews that need to be done, and when do those need to happen?
So Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, basically it needs to be reviewed by us on the planning board. We need to come to an agreement to the payment of that. And then we put that forth, to Andy, and then that payment needs to be made. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So just to make sure I understand, so there'll be an appraisal that comes in, the appraisal will be lower than the amount that was paid previously, but that payment will need to be made from Andy before I don't know if it's on this timeline on the screen, but that payment will be made. Have we had confirmation from Andy that we're in a good place to make that payment on time?
Kevin, I'm not sure this is the best.
I apologize. I just need to step out for 2 seconds.
Andy,
Yes.
Would you mind responding to Kevin's question?
Well, I wanted to wait for Danielle.
Okay, we can wait.
We could fill her in on your answer, Andy. Just go. I don't know how long we should be going.
Well, my response, I wanted to wait for Danielle. She's the chairman of the planning board. I don't know if I'm still muted, am I?
No, we can hear you.
I mean, I just wanted to wait for the return.
And the reason I ask Andy is that, if this is something else that is, liable to hold up the timeline, I think it's, maybe it was Vince's point, figuring these things out, at a time, before the 11th hour, probably might yield a better result.
I understand that, and I think it's very important that, I'm happy to respond. I'm just waiting for.
She's back.
She is back? Or you?
Sorry about that. I just had a kid issue that I needed to deal with. I apologize.
Okay. My response is that I believe that the appraisal that was done by the town at a cost of $500 was dramatically flawed. And I made the payment because that's what the appraisal was at the time, but I objected to the value then. And so I'm going to do and have an appraisal done. And if that appraisal comes in, for just to use an example, at 70,000 versus the amount that I paid was 140, and I'm going to say, okay, I've already paid for both. I paid for the first one and the second one because I don't think that the town is trying to screw me. If the appraisal that they had done is wrong, they shouldn't want to collect more than what the agreement was. So anyway, so Kevin, does that answer your question? That's my position.
It does, and I think we had walked through this maybe a couple years ago, and I don't remember reaching a conclusion. So I just want to make sure that whoever does need to agree to that first payment, counting for the two, that we sort of conceptually reach that agreement as we wait for that appraisal to.
So Kevin, just to let you know, you are correct in the fact that this was discussed several years ago, and kind of it was not resolved because we've been waiting for that second appraisal from Andy to be able to have this discussion. So unfortunately, it's just been kicked down the road, and now it's at the point where it needs to be discussed in a tight time frame. So at this point, we can't really do anything until we get the appraisal from Andy. And once we get that, then we can have that discussion. But it's something, we've been.
Not from lack of trying. I've had one appraiser commit to it and he canceled. He referred me to another one who accepted it, then called back and canceled. I don't know whether it's COVID. Well, according to them, it's, with the low interest rates and combined with COVID, they're like, but anyway, that's the excuse I'm getting. But it's probably, I'm not going to comment on whether it's a good excuse or not, but that's what it will keep, this is not a.
So I guess, do you have someone now? I mean, when we talked in either November, December, you had said you thought you could get us the appraisal by the end of the year. So we're past that now. Do you have one?
I had an appraiser who had committed to do it. And then after a certain length of time went by, he called me back and said, I'm not going to be able to do it. And so then I asked him, we talked about it, and he gave me the name of another appraiser. And I called that appraiser and I spoke to him, and he said he would do it. And but then after like a few weeks or a month and a half, whatever.
All right. Well,
he canceled.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess bottom line is we need the appraisal in, sooner rather than later, because it is a discussion point.
Yeah.
So.
Just to confirm my my understanding is, so when that appraisal does come in, that's the right time to have this discussion. But
yes.
Conceptually, yes. We don't envision this holding up that discussion itself, or the results of that discussion holding up this process at all. It seems like everybody's kind of in agreement that once that is in hand, Andy's plan is more or less appropriate.
Well, Andy,
I don't agree with that.
No, I don't. I mean, Andy, so if the appraisal comes in more than the first one, are you going to pay us, you're going to add on to the first one? I mean, that's basically what you're asking us. So if it comes in higher, you're going to add on to 140?
Eric, if that happens, I'll be happy to do it. But the appraisal that was done was horrible. I mean, you get what you pay for sometimes.
Well, you've had, I think it's been going on for 2 years. I mean,
Danielle, I think we need to move on at this point.
Yeah.
We have other items on the agenda.
I agree.
There's nothing productive left to discuss on this.
I agree. So, with that, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is to talk about the articles.
Oh, by the way, am I done, or am I still on the agenda?
No, you're done. You were all set.
We were
Thank you.
Twice. We were listed twice on the agenda.
I don't, hold on. I don't have the, no, you were only for Century Mill Estates. The next item is the 2021 articles. Oh, the reason why you're listed twice is one of the articles is the road acceptance, but we're not going to go into it when we talk about the articles next. We've already exhausted that. You're just listed as a potential article that we will be putting forth. So that's the only reason why you're listed twice.
Just checking. Thank you very, very much for all the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you for all the residents calling in. All right, so let's, Erica, if you want to open the articles. Actually, I apologize. Sorry. I have one more kid thing I need to I'm just going to take a 2-minute break and I will be right back. I apologize.
Can the board see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Want to start this conversation, or did you want to wait for Danielle?
Let's start the conversation.
Okay. So did the board have an opportunity to review the accessory apartment bylaw? I know Eric did send in his comments.
Yeah, my one comment on this bylaw is just, it seemed like there was inconsistencies. So in the description of D, you said things like, you talked about there shall be a maximum one, it says shall have its own complete kitchen, but then down below you said kitchen's not required. Is that just because it's different of attached versus not attached? I was just confused about how that all worked.
I apologize for the confusion. So the way that we present the article is that items that we intend to delete from the existing bylaw, we put in italics and in parentheses. So how I structured this proposed bylaw is that any commonality between accessory and detached, attached and detached accessory apartments, I placed in this first paragraph. So the first paragraph applies to both types of apartments. So
okay,
this section here is actually our current existing accessory apartment bylaw. So those commonalities I had to take out because it just seemed to, to duplicate it in both sections didn't make sense. So I just moved those items up to this first paragraph. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Could you just take that paragraph and break it out into the bullet points, and just with a title that these are common requirements regardless of attached or detached, just to
Sure.
for Eric.
Yep. So you would like this paragraph broken out into bullet items. I'm happy to do that if that makes it clearer.
I think then it's kind of more consistent than with the specifics for attached or detached.
Yeah, because I was like looking at F, and it says you took out it needs its own complete kitchen. So I was like, well, that's why I was getting confused, I guess.
Yep, I took that out, and that is then now
right,
placed
exactly.
in that. Right, exactly. Okay.
Okay.
Can you zoom in just a little bit more? Sorry, I have a
course.
small screen, so it's a little hard for me to.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So Eric, did we address your first comment
Yes.
then?
Yes.
Okay, great. So to just sort of walk through the requirements, obviously they need to get a building and occupancy permit from the building inspector. They have to meet, all federal, state, and local building and health code requirements. One of the dwelling units needs to be owner occupied. It has to obviously have, the apartment needs to have a kitchen and bathroom. And then the overall appearance of the residence needs to remain that of a single family home. So that's an important feature here. So then we talk about, having it be attached versus detached. So when we talk about the attached accessory apartment, that would be allowed as of right, which is what it is now. You can do, an in-law apartment now, and that is as of right. So the current requirement specifically to an attached apartment remain, in this section here. I haven't changed anything. So that's all the same. And so this is really the new section that talks about the detached accessory apartments. And I tried to incorporate a lot of the items that we discussed at previous meetings. So having the detached accessory apartment appear incidental to the primary, no form of condominium association would be allowed. And then we had talked about, limiting either the number of bedrooms or the number of residents. I've put in up to 4 residents. So I think that's something that the board should deliberate on if you feel that's appropriate. My thought there was that more than 4 people living in an accessory apartment seemed would essentially be more of a single family home. So that was my intent there.
Do we limit the number of people who live in a house?
No.
No.
That's why I think, I guess the question is rather than using the number of residents, do we want to just limit the number of bedrooms?
So
is that also, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the reason why I decided to go with the number of residents versus the number of bedrooms is because I was thinking of, okay, let's say, a family with 2 children wanted to live in an accessory apartment. Did we want to limit them to 2 bedrooms, or did we want to allow them to have, if the square footage allowed, to have 3 bedrooms, so then therefore maximize the number of people to 4?
I mean, doesn't the septic requirements determine number of bedrooms? Like, why do we even need to call it out if it's covered by that?
I think it just depends on if the board is concerned whether or not, people are going to be piling into an accessory apartment. I guess that's my point. Do we want 6 people living in it? So that I think that would be the regulate, why we would want to regulate that.
And I mean, who's going to enforce that? Like, are we doing, housing checks on people?
To be honest with you. Yeah, it's not something we would necessarily enforce unless it was brought to our attention. Then we would do, an inspection and enforcement at that point.
I feel a little weird maximizing the number of residents. Have other bylaws done that?
Yes, so some of the other communities that we had taken a look at did maximize it. And most of them that did do that actually set it to 3 and not 4.
And they probably, I mean, I could imagine certain towns with like a college or young people, for example, don't want a bunch of people, you know, renting it out to cram people in. I don't know how much that applies to Bolton, but.
True, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I would have said 2 bedrooms, just, you know, because when you look at the, you know, we're limiting the number of square feet, so, you know, 2 bedrooms there, you know, there's going to be a limit to how big the bedrooms are as well. So,
I don't know. I guess would be more amenable to limiting it. I mean, not limiting it to 2, but maybe 3, but
My only concern with 3 bedrooms is then, you know, the question pops into my mind, are we then teetering on a single family home?
yeah, you're
You know,
right.
because
No, you're right.
that's my only concern, is that we want this to remain accessory. So
Accessory.
yeah.
So
And
I
the square
think
footage
that's
really does
the
that,
difference.
though. I mean,
it does do that.
If you limit the square footage, you realistically can't have that many bedrooms in addition to a bathroom and a kitchen and anything else. So I don't see a huge need to call out either the bedrooms or the number of people. And I mean, so what do they have to go before Board of Health for this too?
Well, because if they'd have to get approval for the septic system, because if they're adding, you know, 2 new bedrooms, then they need to have their septic system be updated to allow that.
Yeah.
Or they're putting in a separate system for that, you know, whatever it is.
That's got to be a huge cost either way. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're building an accessory apartment, it's starting to get up into that. Yeah. So you Mike, you might be right. We may not need to limit the number of bedrooms or residents, just given the square footage and knowing that they're going to have to go for Board of Health approval and get approval for that, and that's really going to kind of dictate some of that.
Yeah.
I guess, are we going to get pushback though when we go in front of town meeting that we're not restricting this, and then it could allow.
We are restricting the square footage, so I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
But somebody could fit a lot of bedrooms in 1,200 square feet if they, you know, I mean, if you think a 10 by 10 bedroom, you know, you could fit a lot of people and a lot of bedrooms in there. You know.
You want it like a bunkhouse?
Yeah.
I don't think that's considered an accessory apartment then.
And they would still need to have the septic to handle it, right? Regardless of.
Yeah.
I mean, because
yeah, if
septic
they
is
put 10
by
bedrooms
bedroom,
in. Yeah,
right?
if they
So,
put
yeah.
10 bedrooms, they're putting in a very large septic system.
Yeah.
I guess the question is, do we want to keep in here the number of residents occupying, you know, shall not exceed 4?
I mean, if you guys want it in there as a circuit breaker, I'm fine. I mean, I hate putting in, you know, someone once told me, don't make a rule you can't enforce. And if
right, and we can enforce the number of bedrooms. It's hard to enforce the number of residents.
Yeah, my opinion, I don't think we need it.
Okay, should we move on to gross floor area?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had 2 different versions based on reviewing, you know, the other bylaws. The first one was just a percentage and then a maximum. So the gross floor area of the apartment should not exceed lesser of 50% of the gross gross floor area of the principal or 1,200 square feet. So that's pretty straightforward. Or do we want to make it more of a calculation and have it be the gross floor area of the accessory apartment shall not exceed 35% of the floor area of the principal and the proposed apartment combined?
I like the first one. It's more straightforward. The second one's a limit.
Yeah, I was a little confused by the second one, but it allows for bigger.
It does. It provides for flexibility. And
oh, okay. Okay.
So does the board want to take a quick look at some examples I pulled from? I drove around and I picked some homes that had, you know, some nice accessory structures. If you want to look at it, great. If not, no worries. And I did sort of a quick calculation on both of these just to kind of compare how
I think. Yeah, what I'd like to know is, so for the second one, I mean, obviously the first one, is it a maximum of 1,200 square feet? Is that what it, sorry, can you scroll up a little bit?
And the board could certainly change that. So if 1,200 square feet, if you feel that's too little, too much, you know, we can modify that. You know, in other bylaws, I've seen it as little as, you know, 700 to 800 feet up to, you know, there was one community that allowed up to 2,000 square feet, which is pretty excessive. So
yeah, that's a bit much.
Yeah.
Sorry,
that can certainly change.
What does that mean? I'm confused. Shall not exceed the lesser of 50%.
So whichever one's smaller. Oh no, right? Or whichever one.
Right. So whichever one is the lesser of the two, you can't exceed that number. So if 50% of your principal dwelling is less than 1,200 square feet, yeah, then that would be the, you know, restricting number.
Well, 1,200 is the max ever.
Yeah. Correct.
Regardless.
That's right.
But it could be smaller depending on how big your house is.
And again, that reflects on making sure that it's accessory, that it's incidental to the primary. That's what that's getting at.
I gotcha. Because, okay. And that's mainly, yes, to basically, I see. So no matter, so then that's kind of, all right, I see.
And same with this one. I mean, they both sort of, that's the reason why you put it in there is because you want to keep it, you know, an accessory use. So these both drive at that. This one here just provides a little more flexibility and greater square footage if needed. So
what was the square footage of that barn that we looked at?
Oh, the three-car garage that's being converted. That's a good question. Well, it was three. It was 3 bays.
Because 1,200 square feet isn't that much.
I know. That's why I was almost thinking it should be bumped up to 1,500 square feet. I agree. I think 2,000 is too much, but I kind of think an accessory building, just knowing that there are still some pretty large houses around town, that 1,500 could still look like an accessory building. I guess. Do you, Erica?
That is that's the first example, right? In the 155 North Road.
All right. So do you see this? This other
black.
It's a black screen.
It's just a black screen.
You got to stop it and reshare.
Okay, so this was the examples that I had sent, doing both calculations for various properties. I included 155 North Road because the residents of that particular residence were interested in this bylaw, so I wanted to include that here. So based on the property card for that residence, the accessory building here is 1,448 square feet. So that would be 39.4% of the principal dwelling. So that would work.
Wait. So wait.
But it's over it's over 1,200.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. It would exceed the maximum though. Yeah.
And so what would that mean? Like if we passed the 1,200 square foot bylaw, would that they could not use that as an accessory? No.
So knowing residents were interested in this, and potentially there being other residents interested that had a larger existing structure like this, I allowed for a caveat that they could let's just go back to the bylaw, because I did put a caveat in there to sort of capture those particular structures. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
So the next bylaw requirement, accessory buildings either grandfathered or constructed with a building permit prior to the meeting date whose gross floor areas exceed the maximum allowed area may be considered at the discretion of the permit granting authority.
Yeah.
So they could, all right, so they could come to us and ask, basically, it would be like asking for a waiver. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
And they could approve that. Well, if that is in there, then in one sense, I would say, just go ahead and keep the 1,200 square feet, because it doesn't really matter if they have the ability to come forward with us with a larger building.
Well, a larger existing building.
A larger existing building.
Right. So somebody who's gets a building permit.
No. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Would not be grandfathered in. But like the North Road one, that's a pre-existing structure. I mean, you know, yeah, they're not going to block off a chunk of the building to get 100 square feet. So
yeah. No, I think that makes sense. Like if it's already built, it's kind of like the barn bylaw, you know, like that was already, you know, built before a certain date. You know, we're you know, allowing that. So I think this caveat is a good one to have. I guess the question, I really like the first way it's worded versus the second one. I just think the second one's a little bit more confusing. So I'm fine with leaving it at 1,200 or bumping it up to 1,500, whatever the board feels okay with.
Erica, do you have a sense of like what, when someone builds a house with an accessory detached apartment, what's kind of the size that they look to build of that? I'm just having a hard time even picturing what.
Yeah, I actually think it's, I don't think it's that significant, to be honest with you.
It's much smaller, you mean?
I don't know if it's much smaller, but it's hard to answer that question at present because what's being built. Are you saying accessory structures or apartments currently being built?
Yeah, accessory, like I'm just trying to think, like would a builder, I mean, I think this is a great bylaw to give people flexibility, right? And if someone knows they have parents who are aging in the area, you know, when you build a new house, you might want to consider as part of that, building a detached structure on the property. And I'm just curious if that's any sort of trend that you see in other towns, what, you know, how big those get built.
I mean, I would say a good indicator, I talked to Mark O'Hagan about this. I think the board had asked me to reach out to him. And actually his house is one of the examples on here. You know, I think going by the size of a garage is a good way to kind of measure that. Because any existing structure, if it's, you know, a garage that they're looking to convert, or maybe they have a loft space above there, you know, I think that's an appropriate measurement.
So how big is like how big is a 3-car garage?
Let's look at Mark O'Hagan's because his is a garage with a loft space above it.
And does only the living space get included in the calculation, or does
it's
the
the
garage
floor
space?
area? It's just the floor area of the living space is the way that it's written right now.
Yep.
So like this is a current garage, a building, excuse me, a garage that was currently built across from Town Hall, just as an example of what is being built currently.
What was that square footage? Sorry, can you scroll
that
up?
garage is 25 by 25 right here.
Oh, 625. Okay.
Yeah. So that's, you know, it's
so,
significantly
right.
less than the 1,200. So that's, you know, I think there's a good
maybe
way
1,200 is a good number just to keep.
Well, that's just one floor though, right? If you put a second floor there.
Right, that's true. So this is Mark O'Hagan's house. This is his garage, and he has a loft space, like just a bonus room above his garage here, and that's 600 square feet.
So, but that's just the loft.
That's just the loft.
So
yeah.
Again, if someone, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if someone like Pete, you were just mentioning, if someone were to actually turn the whole building into an accessory apartment, it would be closer to 1,200 because you've got 6 and 6.
Yeah. I mean, I think 1,200 is close. You know, usually if you look at like studio apartments, right, are probably, I don't know, 900, maybe 1,000 square foot. You start moving into 1 bedrooms, it's probably around 1,200 to 1,500. So I don't think we're think we're about where we want to be, you know, whether it's 12 or 15. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this structure and knowing that this was 600 square feet on the top, that clearly if you took the bottom, you're talking 1,200 square feet. I think that's a pretty decent sized structure, so.
Well, and so Erica, what's the deal with that structure now? So, I mean, that is, so someone built that, there's living space up there that someone could live in. Are you saying if someone were
This house
living in?
here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bonus room. There's no kitchen or bathroom or anything.
Oh, there's no kitchen in it. Okay.
Yeah, no. It's not an
Yeah.
accessory apartment. No, nothing like that. No.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
And 600 square feet's I mean, that's what my cottage in Maine is. And it's 2-bedroom, full bath, nice living area. I mean, that's a pretty reasonable, pretty reasonable size, as an accessory apartment. Again, keep in mind, this isn't supposed to be we're not talking about, a second house on the lot. This is an accessory apartment,
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I want to go any larger.
I think 1,200 is plenty.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's my sense too. This is the horse veterinarian that moved to Hudson Road. This is their house. This is their barn. Inside that barn, they do have a veterinarian office that I think has a full kitchen and bathroom, and that's 430 square feet. And the remaining portion of it is a barn.
Okay.
And so these are just, again, very similar examples.
So I know I mentioned I like the first one with the 50% and the 1,200. What does the board feel? Are you guys okay with that one, or do you want to use the second one with the 35%?
I think having the 1,200 foot max is reasonable. I mean, the 35%, if you've got a
5,000, yeah,
a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot McMansion, your accessory apartment could be 3,000 square feet.
Yeah, no, I agree. I if you guys are all amenable, let's stick with the first one.
Just out of curiosity, the special part. Oh, sorry.
I'm good with the 12.
Yeah. The special permit or the waiver that the board could grant based on the bylaw, does that go with the property or with the owner?
That would go. So typically special permits go with the property unless you define it within your permit that it can only go with the owner.
Okay.
Okay, let's keep going.
So these are pretty generic about, curb cuts, reducing the number of curb cuts, having sufficient ingress, egress, adequate parking, and then just any other limitations and safeguards, the board can apply. So very standard language.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else that the board would like me to review or research regarding, detached accessory apartments? The only other thing I'll probably do is just review the our zoning bylaw in its entirety, just to make sure there's no conflicting areas elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that's probably it. That, other than that, I don't know, from here, I'll probably just start creating some visuals or some wording for actual town meeting or things to post prior to town meeting for, educational purposes.
And sorry, Erica, this only applies to detached structures?
That's correct.
Okay.
So all of these items only apply to detached accessory structures because this would require a special permit where the other ones, the attached would not. And I'm not changing anything. I have no desire to change what we already have. It's working. It's so it's just really adding this.
Okay.
Unless the board desires to change any of this. If there's something here that, you'd like to further investigate, that's fine. We could certainly do that.
I think it looks good.
Okay, so and then just adding a definition to definitions for an accessory apartment. We don't currently have that, so I like to try to update our terms as much as we can.
Yep.
And then the next one, this is a real simple one. We talked about the temporary signs, particularly the real estate signs, and then just changing the wording where it says the addition of the word sold is not allowed, to updating it to the sign shall be removed 14 days after closing date of sale.
I meant to send a photo a couple weeks ago. I saw someone had a sold sign up on their real estate sign. And I was gonna call the police up and get a zoning enforcement.
Oh boy. Sounds good. Let's go to the next one.
The police have been called for less in Bolton.
That's true. That's true. Okay. So the next one, the board had asked for me to draft sort of just a rough outline of a bylaw for outdoor lighting. So, and also research other communities. So I had sent you lighting bylaws for quite a few. I had taken a look at Lunenburg, Hopkinton, Carlisle, Acton, Lancaster, Stowe, Harvard, Berlin. I mean, I looked at quite a few. I sent you quite a few. The one out of all of those that I felt was very fair and reasonable was actually the Lancaster bylaw. So what you see here is a sort of a spin-off of their version.
What was some of the difference between Lancaster and Stowe? Because this was originally brought up, for us to kind of check out Stowe. I was just curious if you don't know specifics, that's fine. I was just curious.
Just generally speaking, when I was really diving into the Stowe bylaw, it's incredibly restrictive and it regulates to a pretty high degree. And I just didn't think that we needed to go to that extent.
Gotcha.
That was my primary concern with the Stowe bylaw. Certainly we can go back to that if the board, would like to
No, I don't think the intent was to create a very rigorous bylaw. I mean, this was kind of brought up as something that we should look at as the town, but it certainly wasn't, at least I don't think that it was a major concern. So I don't know I don't think we need to go to that level at this point.
So hopefully the board had a chance to take a quick look at this. I talked about the objective, why we're putting this bylaw in place, and then the applicability. Now, this is a big part of it. The board needs to make a decision whether or not you want to apply this to single family homes or not. So in the research that I did with the other communities, Stowe is the only other community that I could find that regulates single family homes. All of the other ones exempt most residential. So I think that's something we really need to think about and whether or not we want to apply it. I think generally speaking, this is a really great lighting bylaw that we could still bring forward for commercial properties, business properties, potentially agricultural properties. So I think it's something that we should still continue to consider. We just need to make that decision whether or not to apply it to single family homes. So
Erica, has there been any chatter at all since we've been talking about it? It's been on the for a couple of months now. Has anyone reached out to you? Because I'm kind of on the fence with this one. I agree it should be with businesses and agricultural and everything, but when you start, I don't know. Ever since it's been brought up, it's like, you start telling people, what they can put on for lights, or, then you start getting to there was a lot of, looking at it, the lumens and some of the other stuff. I'm just like, I don't know if people are going to really buy it.
Understand. Yeah.
Right. How many complaints have we received? I mean, because I didn't really perceive this as being an issue in town. Residential.
Yeah, I haven't received any complaints.
Yeah, no, Eric, this was, I think, one of the meetings you had missed, there was a resident that had brought up, or discussing potential town articles, and he had said, and he brought up light pollution and just the spillage of light, and I don't think it was necessarily a complaint, but it was a notice that we didn't have a bylaw and that there was potentially a gap there.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree with James on this, that I think it's definitely appropriate for us to have a bylaw with regard to commercial industrial business, because if we don't, then there's the potential there are issues. So I think we certainly would want to move forward with that. I am hesitant, and as I read this earlier today, just, before the meeting, and was thinking that it was to me, it was very cumbersome as a single family home person. So I think that could definitely be something that, and I just wanted to hear what other people's thoughts were, as well as
Yeah, I mean,
does it make sense just to make it?
I thought it was way too much for residential.
Yeah.
Personally, I mean, like it's just a couple of 60-watt bulbs, and you're already getting in the range. And even so, one of the clauses was they all require the angled lighting, which, most people's fixtures, don't have that. And then when you're talking about floodlight, I mean, there's probably at least one or more lights in everybody's houses that we're gonna, ask them to change. So like Mike said, like, are we really gonna enforce this? Like, is there really an issue? I can totally see it for businesses, but
well,
I mean,
I can say right now, it's not going to pass, guys.
Yeah.
It's not going to pass.
Yeah,
I've had
exactly.
some concerns. I'm reading this email from a resident that Erica forwarded on.
Yeah.
I mean, if people think they're going to have to change their outside lighting, it's not going to pass. So
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So it
mean,
sounds
yeah,
like
I mean,
we're all in agreement that this should not be for single family homes.
No, yeah, I mean, I was thinking, okay, can I go down to Home Depot and get fixtures that match, that would meet these requirements? And when I take my dog out at midnight, does that mean I can't turn the floodlights on?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I put in smaller bulbs so I don't light up the whole yard. It just seemed like a bit too much.
No, I agree. So let's make it obviously for business, commercial, industrial only. I guess the question I have now is, do we feel that this is cumbersome for them, or is, and I don't mind being a little, rigid or stringent with and trying to control their lights, but I don't want to be prohibitive. I want to.
Is this much beyond what we already require from them in their lighting plans?
That's what I was going to say. Isn't this already covered with businesses?
To some degree it is. We do require that their light fixtures be full cutoff. But beyond that, we limit spillage onto abutting properties. But beyond that, we don't really get into the details of what we're looking for. We don't actually require a photometric plan or a site plan for lighting. We ask for it, so they submit it. So I was just thinking, if we decide to move forward with this, it is nice to have those details spelled out so we could point to it and say, no, look, you need to submit X, Y, and Z. So that if we decide not to do that, that's fine too. So.
I definitely want to require them to submit a photometrics plan, because I think that's something that is first of all, any manufacturer will do it for free. So it's not like it's a cost, to the developer for them to do that. And it gives us an easy plan to look at, to see where the light spillage is, and to kind of make sure, along the property lines and everything. So I wholeheartely agree that we need to require that. I just wanted to make sure some of the fixtures and stuff like that. I mean, is this something we want to have design, like Michelle or some of the architects review this? I'm just not a lighting expert, so I don't know. It seems. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, I mean, if this is a requirement if we limit this to commercial and industrial, then the design review board would see this as well. And they could chime in at that point.
I mean, I like the idea of what Eric's saying is, if we can have specific requirements, because it gives commercial businesses, specific guidelines that they need to follow. And then it kind of puts everyone on the same page. So I like that. I guess I don't have the expertise to know if we're being prohibitive at all. So that's where I have no problems kind of with it. I want to make sure we're, before we go in front of the town with this to run it for commercial, business, and industrial, is there something else or someone else or that could review this to say, no, this makes sense. This is kind of standard, for wanting to, kind of keep your light pollution in check and stuff like that.
Well,
yeah, I'd be happy to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Would this? So this would existing businesses would be affected by this, or is this just new?
This would be
new business?
This
all
would be
new.
new, yeah. So if you look at the
Yeah.
section here, I say existing outdoor lighting approved
We're-
through the expense of the special permit and or site plan approval as of May 3rd. So they would be exempt. If they already have a
Yeah.
permit, they're
We're
not
gonna
going to
go
be
after.
required. Unless they need to amend their permit, then maybe we could look at it, but no, we wouldn't go after existing.
How about
So-
the schools or,
That would not apply.
So all businesses, have to come for a special permit. So could we just add in the special permit that we require a lighting plan and we require, the lumens?
yeah, but if we don't
and-
call that out, if we don't call out what they need to meet in the lighting plan.
Yeah, well, I mean, but there's, different size of business. I don't know how we would come to some numbers. I mean, for like instance, Paragon, who has a huge parking lot and a lot of people leave, in the winter, probably in the evening versus,
But so what you do is, I mean,
country cover.
what we don't want is two giant light poles that are, 50 feet high that are lighting the whole parking lot. You'd rather
Mhm.
have, for example, like 20 foot, light poles that are going to, bring that spillage much closer down. So I think that's where this type of thing is absolutely important. And,
Mhm.
I think we said there's a maximum pole height of 20 feet,
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think, that's where we're kind of taking into the character of our town where we don't want this 50-foot high, highway light. So I like all of this and I think it all sounds good. Because I don't have the expertise in it, Erica, is there someone we could run this by and get just a second feel on this?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to reach out to Michelle Tuck to see if she has any expertise in lighting. I mean, I can provide the board with, I found a great website that had some before and after photos of comparing like LED lights versus some older like incandescent lighting of parking lots to show the difference and how I know it sounds complex, but when you really start to read into it and you look at these various measurements for lighting, it's actually, I think, pretty simple. And I think a lot of this information won't be cumbersome for an applicant to get because I think they can get it from the manufacturer of the light or the light fixture.
I think you're 100% right.
Yeah.
And that all comes when they get the spec from when they get the cut sheet from the fixture and then they do the photometrics. So I think all of this is pretty standard. It's more of just some of the requirements of if she has a feel or if she has someone that could give it a quick review, just to make sure we're not being prohibitive. I think that would be something, I anticipate the question coming from town meeting saying, are you going to limit businesses and what they can do? So if we could kind of answer that question, I think that would be.
No, I think that's a great idea. And Danielle, I just thought about it too. I could always, if the board wouldn't mind paying for a review, I could ask Niche to see if they have a landscape architect on staff that could look at this.
Would it be a landscape architect or would we want like a lighting specialist? And the only reason why I say that is because I have a landscape architect in my firm and she.
You don't think she would know this?
No, I don't think she would.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Some landscape architects might. I don't mean to imply that they wouldn't. I just know that my landscape architect, we hire, we don't have lighting in-house. So we actually, I mean, I could potentially forward it to him. I don't know if he'd be willing to look at it, but because he's not in my company, but yeah, so we hire, we have a lighting expert that we would hire to do the site lighting for our sites and stuff.
If you want to send me your contact, I'm happy to reach out to him to see if for a small nominal fee, if he'd be willing to look at it. I mean, we have that purchases of services account, which, this is a prime example of how we could use that. So
yeah, I can definitely send you that because he does. He's done site for us for businesses and a bunch of stuff. So he would be exactly the type of person that if he looked at it and says, no, this seems reasonable, that would be great.
I will do that.
Danielle, we do have a comment in the audience.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Yes. Stephen Schneider, would you go ahead and unmute?
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Steve Schneider, 694 Main Street. We live right at the corner of Main and Mechanic. And I just wanted to comment and say, first of all, thank you for considering this. This is actually an important issue that we've been dealing with. and specifically having to do with the lights that have been added recently at the Houghton Building and at Emerson School. And just a couple of comments. One is that it's not always just necessarily a 50-foot light pole that's the offender. It can be just a plain old LED wall pack, 3 or 4 of them added to the side of the building that can pretty much turn your backyard into a complete field of shadows. And so I think that it's important. There's a lot of information out there, and I've over the last 6 months been dealing with the town administrator trying to get this resolved. And there's a lot of really simple things that can be done, especially when new lighting is being put up. That's not cost prohibitive. It's just a matter of purchasing the correct fixture, and LEDs are great. The problem is that they come in different colors, and those different colors can be pleasant in the evening, or they can turn day into night. I mean, night into day, and that's not what you want. And then if the fixture is improperly placed, or if it's just these old fixtures that spray light everywhere, it's and if it's for security purposes, which a lot of lighting is, it actually will cause more of a safety issue because it blinds people rather than lighting the space that it's meant to light. So that's just one. And the second is, I know that the comment was made that schools wouldn't be included in this, and I would encourage the board to rethink that if they can, and include municipal buildings and schools to not be exempt from this approach.
Thank you. No, that's a good thought.
I'll make just one third comment, and I don't know if this falls into the planning board's purview, but another thing that is happening along Main Street and the other streets is, and it's happening in towns everywhere, which is the replacement of the old high pressure sodium street lights with LED lights, which again is fantastic. It's an energy saver. It's fantastic, but we're probably unique in that we're kind of surrounded by municipal buildings, schools, and streetlights, and I know that's a minority in the town. But when the streetlights were replaced with these lamps that were 5,000 Kelvin, which is basically as white as you can get them, unshielded, and just spraying everywhere, it was profound what just the 2 fixtures that we were being affected by primarily did. And again, it was a lot of discussion and him and Han, and we're still not done. The town administrator and I dealing with NGrid to try and shield some of these lamps. Actually, the street lights are now shielded, but we really were pushing them to change the warmth of the light from that bright white 5,000 Kelvin down to at least 3,000. And again, I know for those of you who have not delved into the wonderful world of lighting and lumens, I'm speaking a different language, but it all makes sense once you look into it. And it's just so hard to go back once these things have sort of, the genie's been let out of the bottle. So I think what you folks are considering is proactive. It's fantastic, and I would say that I would encourage you not to be afraid to get more information. Ask Michelle; she will know all about this. And it's not prohibitive. It's just You know, instead of picking the 5,000 Kelvin lamps, you pick the 3,000 or the 2,700, and then as a result, you don't get complaints. You know, it's as simple as that.
No, thank you. And we do have specific requirements actually in here that kind of delve to that. So that is included in the bylaw that we have right now. So I think at this time, why don't we at least, Erica, I'll give you that name of the lighting specialist I know, and if you know of anyone else you want to send it to, and Michelle, please, you know, let's get as many comments as we can, and then we can you know, regroup at the next hearing and see you know, how this looks. But I think it's a good one to still put forward so far.
So I will update it first before I send it on.
Yes, yes. And make sure it
Okay.
says residential, you know, is excluded. I think maybe we can talk more next time if we want to include schools and municipal buildings. It's
Sure.
definitely a good thought.
So are we saying just single family residential? So if there's like a big complex or something, then you would probably want this to be in effect, right?
I would think so. I mean, that's up to the board. So I would only, you know, I would only exempt single family homes.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Because you know, a development could go in a residential zone, and you probably want the same thing for a business. You would probably want the same thing there as you would for a business. I'm talking like an apartment complex or something like that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like if you have a multifamily home that's like just two things, I would think that would still, I'm almost thinking if you want to say single family home or multifamily home up to whatever 2 or 3 would be exempt, because I mean, you certainly wouldn't want to burden, you know, multifamily home that only has 2, you know, 2 entities to it to have to comply with this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But once you start getting, you know, 4 and above, I know I don't think we allow multifamily homes that are 4 and above, but I still would just allow that as an exemption, multifamily home, for whatever we allow up to 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, I was thinking along the lines of a friendly 40B, you know, that they maybe would follow our lighting plan as a compromise type situation. But all my other comments were based solely on how it would impact residential, so they don't really make sense if we're not including residential. So.
Yeah, no, I think we're going to exclude that. So is that the last article?
And then just I haven't put on Century Mill yet, but the acceptance of Houghton Farm Lane.
Which, yeah, we can, I don't think we need to really kind of go through that. That's just,
yeah.
They're moving forward. They don't have any hangups, right? Basically, it looks like that one will
No,
be.
that should be good. One point I'd like to point out though, you know, if we're modifying deadlines and allowing for flexibility, I don't know if that's going to happen yet, but providing flexibility to Century Mill Estates, we're going to need to do the same thing with Houghton Farm.
Yep.
Do we know when their as-built is coming in?
Well, I've given them the exact same deadlines as I gave Andy, so it should be, you know, we should receive it before January 25th. You know, and I don't see that being a problem because Greg Roy had committed to getting it to us by the end of December. I expect it any day. I talked to Peter Bradley. He said it was going to be coming in any day. So regardless if they move that date, they probably are going to meet it anyway. But at the same time, I think we need to be fair across the board. So,
No, I think if we get a revised date from the Board of Selectmen that they're willing to, you know, let that slide a little bit, we can let them know. However, what I would let them know is obviously the earlier they get this in, for us to be able to have Niche review it and not be Niche reviewing 2 of them at the same time would be advantageous for them. So I would still suggest that they try to get that in as soon as possible so we can have Niche review it and not have to have Niche being reviewing 2 plans at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, are we pretty close to being done? Is there anything else on the agenda did I miss?
Meeting
I
minutes.
think there were two administrative items.
Do we want to do that tonight, or you guys want to just call it a night? We'll do them at the next meeting.
Would the board, oh, you know what? We can do it at the next meeting. I was gonna say appointing Sharon Chapella to the master plan, but we can do that at the next meeting. I told them that would be done before their next meeting, but that shouldn't be a problem.
That's okay. All right. Do you guys want to just call it a night? I know it's been 3.5
Motion to adjourn.
hours. All right. Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you staying on. I know it's been a long meeting. Everyone have a good night.
Okay. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.